Hello to all my dear followers. How are you all doing? Today I'm here to welcome you to the fanfic What If Naruto Went Back to the Past and Sasuke Was a Woman? Remember that if you want more fanfics like this on the channel, just leave a like and subscribe, which makes me very happy. Now let's begin.
Naruto, Sasuke, and Kaguya were facing each other. Sakura, Kakashi, and Obito were killed when they were trying to protect both of them. The rabbit goddess was in no hurry as she knew that two shinobis wouldn't be able to resist much longer. They would soon weaken. They didn't have much more chakra and they were barely standing up, but they couldn't fail in here. The fate of the ninja world depended on them after all. Sasuke, we're not gonna last much longer then. It's time to finish her once and for all. The blonde man said in a faint voice. Okay. The Ravenhead replied simply. He knew he was in a much worse situation than his companion as he hadn't a mountain of chakra like him. It was a miracle that he still managed to stand. Kaguya watched them patiently. Sasuke was panting with the exposed trunk. Clearly, even breathing caused him pain. Naruto was not much different, with the upper body covered only by a mantle of orange chakra, and he had a serious expression and a fearful look as he looked at their enemy. He fully knew, even if he refused to believe, he knew how strong Kaguya was. She was not even breathless. She was simply watching them, waiting for their futile attempts to defeat her to come to an end. The stillness of his faithful companion, Kurama, only confirmed his theories. Uzumaki Naruto didn't usually think about anything so much. He was always impulsive and very hyperactive, both in his personal life and in his shinobi career, but now he was calm strangely. It seems that war changes people, not even Naruto was the exception. He remained in his position, waiting for his comrade who was minimally ready for his last attempt to prevent the biggest disaster, no matter how much he wondered internally if there was anything after death. I'm ready, Naruto, Sasuke announced, getting ready to invest against Kaguya. Naruto just looked at him and then nodded firmly. They started charging into the goddess. An intense exchange of blows was established as they sought a minimal opening to perform the sealing. None of them used ninjutsu as they had no chakra, and Kaguya had no interest. Naruto and Sasuke continued with taijutsu, looking for the moment Kaguya would falter, but it seems it was impossible. With a quick turn, she blew a violent punch to the blonde boy's face, who then was thrown away, hitting on the ground several times while catching the raven-haired boy with a tightness in the neck. Sasuke, Naruto yelled in concern. From a distance, he looked Sasuke struggling for a while before he soon stopped moving. Kaguya absorbed his chakra, and the last Uchiha was killed immediately. The fate of humanity was sealed because only Naruto was not enough to defeat her. Kaguya then turned around, and it didn't take long to walk towards the blonde. He had no strength left, but he managed to stand up. He couldn't resist even if he didn't want. It's over, Ashura's descendant, Kaguya said in a calm, bland voice. Naruto didn't have the strength to say anything, just standing and looking when Kaguya put her hand on his forehead. The darkness embraced him. At the height of the shinobi war, the greatest fear of the shinobi world became real. Satsuki Kaguya absorbed the powers of Uzumaki Naruto and Uchiha Sasuke. With no one else to stop her, the divine tree finished absorbing the chakra of the shinobi. The infinite Tsukuyomi and the resurrection of the rabbit goddess were completed. Naruto awoke in an endless black abyss. Where am I? He asked himself as he looked around to try and find any clues to tell him his answer. He found nothing. Look like you woke up. A voice spoke behind him. He turned quickly to see a young girl with black hair and a red robe that framed her body nicely in front of a campfire of some sort. Who are you? He asked. I'm the beautiful goddess of time and space, she answered with a bright smile. Naruto stared at the young girl and burst out laughing. Yeah, he could be more mature and composed, but you know old habits die hard. What? The young girl yelled, glaring at the young man. There's no way that a little girl can be a god even if you glow. Naruto replied with a grin. Hey, I'm really a god, you disrespectful brat, the girl exclaimed with a scowl on her face. All right, Naruto said while he was trying not to laugh. So what are you doing, little god? You! A tick mark appeared on the girl's head. Just answer me and then you can hit me if you want. His expression quickly became serious. You're quite bipolar. The girl replied with a sigh. Answer your question. I have something to tell you. And that's, Naruto, I'm a god. I always watch everything happen in the human world, which means that I know what usually happens with you. The girl said in a serious tone. Naruto's heart sank and he looked down. He knew what she was saying. I died, didn't I? He asked quietly, and the girl nodded. Looking the scene around, I suppose I'm on the way to the hell? The young girl looked at him in surprise. Why do you think so? She asked. Because even if you allow me to go to heaven, I refuse it. I won't be able to look in the face of the people who died for me and of everyone who counted on me to stop Kagaya. Naruto said with a bitter smile. Well, that was quite intense, the girl replied, scratching the back of her head. However, I don't send you to heaven or hell, at least until after what I'm going to ask you. Naruto raised his eyebrow. What do you mean? He asked. This place, where I and you are in, is all spirits go if they have someone who is waiting for them or need to wait for someone. Normally, you would wait for your teammates, I believe. The young girl explained. But the reason I'm here is to offer you a chance. Naruto looked at her in confusion. A chance? He asked. I will make you regenerate. The girl answered with a broad smile, which made Naruto look at her as if she grew a second head. Sorry, but are you really serious? I mean, do you really mean what you're saying? He mouthed. Ah well, maybe I was confused for a moment. You're not really regenerated. The girl made it right, smiling awkwardly. Rather, you will be sent for a specific period of time because it's impossible to reincarnate to your old world. But don't worry so much, it is not very much different from your original one. Only some minor differences that didn't have a lot of impacts. She said, mentally chuckled. At least I think so. She thought to herself. I see. Naruto replied, thinking about something. However, it's up to you to choose if you will go or stay here and follow me to the Pure Land. The girl stated, resting her chin on her hand. Will you want a second chance to live in another timeline? A new world with a new chance? Not too bad. Naruto said, smiling softly. All right, I accept it. The girl chuckled at him. Okay, then, your goal is very simple, she said, opening her arms. You will be brought to the timeline where I prepare for you. Make every effort to save the world and prevent it from being destroyed again, she stated with a cheer. Oh, and I think there is someone tagging along with you. Naruto tilted his head. Who? He asked. He's right behind you, the girl replied, making Naruto look over and see only the black abyss. Here down here, Kit. Naruto looked down. Kekurama. He got out in astonishment. Why the hell are you a chibi fox? He asked as he eyed the small nine-tailed fox. Seriously, I don't want to know. The little nine-tailed fox grumbled, jumping on the blonde's shoulder and then depositing himself on his head. I just hope I will get back my original size later. Oh, I almost forgot. There's something else. Her voice trailed off, prompting him to turn and look at her in curiosity. You will still keep your memories and knowledge. You will still be able to do every jutsu you once could, but only what your present body can deal with. You must still train your body to return to its old strength. Finally, as I said, everything is almost the same as your old world, and you will find a way to live and solve every problem in that timeline. There is trouble and confusion, but I believe you're able to get through it all. The girl completed with a smile. Naruto nodded his head, looking full of determination. This time he wouldn't fail. Not again. He would win every enemy he had to face and save the world, including defeating the rabbit goddess if he had to face her once again. Okay, everything is set. It's time to get your second chance, the young girl said as she moved her hands, creating a portal behind Naruto with the power emanating from her right hand and pushing him into the portal with the gravitational wave from her left hand. Ah, I left you a little gift. I hope it will make you happy. Good luck. Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto was the last thing Naruto heard before he fell unconscious. Naruto groggily opened his eyes to find that it was night. Widening his eyes in surprise, he shot up and unceremoniously fell from his bed. Ow! Ouch! Naruto whimpered. Well, Kit, you should calm down. A voice spoke out and Naruto then found himself in his mindscape courtesy of the nine-tailed beasts. Kurama! Naruto shouted happily as he saw his furred friend. Look like that little god say the truth. We're in your old apartment. Kid! Kurama's voice lowered slowly as his eyes widened at the same time. Naruto looked at him in confusion. What happened? Why do you look so surprised? He asked. Holy shit. Kid! Your appearance. The ancient fox said, looking at the sight of the boy in front of him with dumbfound. What are you saying, fuzzbutt? Instead of growling and yelling at him as usual for the nickname, Kurama simply stared at him. You should see it yourself, finding a mirror and looking at yourself in it, he said dumbly. Hearing the fox, Naruto got out of the mindscape and came back to his home. He then went to the bathroom and approached the mirror on the wall. Looking at himself in it, he gaped in shock. What the hell? He yelled surprisingly. In the mirror was the image of the young boy about 8 to 9 years old, with blonde hair and sky blue eyes. Yeah, nothing wrong with it if it was the old short spiky blonde hair. Instead, his hair was longer than it was at his age. He looked more taller than he had used to be in the old world, and he was currently wearing a black shirt with a white short-sleeve jacket over it instead the usual orange jumpsuit. And, more importantly, there was no any whiskers on both of his cheeks now. In other words, Uzumaki Naruto, whose appearance looked exactly like his father, Namikaze Minato. Why does my look? Wait a minute. Naruto closed his eyes, trying to recall what the little girl had told him before. I left you a little gift. I hope it will make you happy. That lowly girl, Naruto murmured, then sighing. Kurama, meanwhile, managed to get out of his surprise and had a good laugh. It's not bad, Kit. Although you had no whisker anymore, the new appearance is really better than the old one, he remarked. I know, Kurama, and it's not like I don't like it. Otherwise, I love it, Naruto said with a broad smile. It make me feel closer than Tsunade, he added in a gentle tone. The fox's expression softened at that. He's always in your heart, Kit. You're always his beloved and good son. The child Namikaze Minato is very proud of, he stated, hoping to comfort the boy. Thank you, Kurama, he replied, then suddenly became serious. However, this is also a problem for us, you know. The orange fox nodded in agreement. Yeah. Looking at the picture on the table, it seems that your appearance just changed once you came to this timeline. Therefore, it will attract unwanted attention and you surely get yourself into trouble. Especially you're the perfect copy of your old man now. Naruto rubbed his chin. We can hide it by the Jinjutsu. Only even with the strongest one that I can cast now with Fuinjutsu, ninjas who are in Jounin rank, ANBU Black Ops and the Hokage will easily see through it, he said with a sigh. Your present body is really too inconvenient. That's a truth I can't deny, but it actually makes sense, the blonde stated as if it was something obvious. Think about it. What if I still had my old strength and then someone with skillful sensor feeling it? TCH, although I don't want I have to admit you're right now, the fox grumbled in annoyance. By the way, this body isn't as thin and skinny as I was at the same age. I suppose that god girl did something good for me, Naruto remarked, inspecting his body. The new body was really better, much more than the former one, though it was quite a malnourished young body. Naruto, however, quickly brushed it off and determined to eat better than just ramen all the time. It was not like he had any other options back in the day. However, it was time for the Henjutsu playing its very useful role this time around. Naruto mentally facepalmed himself as he took that idea. The blonde couldn't believe he had never thought of using such a basic technique to live a better life in his childhood. He then shook his head, finding it silly. His thoughts stopped short when Kurama got his attention. Really, to be unable to blame on you as you had already critical times hard to deal with. Obviously, the rough life drove your thoughts and acts, and it made you miss many things, the fox said with a hint of sadness and guilty. Kurama knew it was Uchiha Obito controlling him to attack the Hidden Leaf Village, but he nearly killed Naruto on purpose after all, and his parents sacrificed to protect their own son. The Yondaime hoped Naruto was viewed as the hero of the village, but he then became the scapegoat for idiotic villagers releasing their vengeance and hatred on the poor boy. Kurama used to be hate human, but sometimes he couldn't help feeling bad for his childhood. As if reading what his furred friend was thinking, Naruto smiled at him softly. Don't beat yourself up as everything happened in the past. By the ways, it's not fair for you getting imprisoned, so it's obvious you hold a grudge at us, he said in a caring tone. I know, Kit, but I killed your parent in my will and the cause of your suffer then in a long time. Kurama admitted with a hint of regret. As I said, it was in the past now. When I knew tailed beasts have their own thoughts and feelings, I can see your desire to gain freedom. I believe Tsunade and Ka-san understand it too, and their death is for protecting me and Konoha. He replied gently. Turning your back on your village is as bad as abandoning a child. My father is the Hokage and he had to do his work as a leader, and we're family of shinobi after all. It made me hurt so much, but I need to accept it, the blonde completed with a sad smile. The nine-tailed beast kept silence because he had nothing to tell. Those words, Naruto's father told them before he used the dead demon consuming seal and sealed the fox into his son. He can get his mother's personality, but he is more and more like his father when he is older. I wonder what Kushina will think if she sees this. Kurama thought to himself, mentally imagining a red-haired woman filling with jealousy as her baby boy looked like her husband than herself. All right, putting our negative feeling aside as it's not the time. What will we have to do to my new look? Naruto suddenly spoke out, getting the fox out of his thought. I think you just cast a simple genjutsu with fuinjutsu. You're still a student in the academy after all, and no way annoying brats are able to sense and find out as they'd never paid attention to you. What about ANBUs who guard me? Naruto asked. He was unable not to talk about it because if someone caught him using genjutsu, it would be loyal ANBU agents of the Sandaime Hokage, especially a certain ANBU with dog mask. Just ignore them, at least in the moment. Kurama silenced in seconds before continued. I think it will be better for us if you reveal all for your old Hokage, as soon as possible, Kit. He recommended. Naruto looked at him in shock. You want me to tell everything to Gigi? Is it okay? He asked with hesitation. I fully know what we risk for if we let someone know our information, but it's necessary. Kurama said firmly. Let's say you have your knowledge of what will happen in the future, but it's still too much for you to deal with all of them. You need at least an ally to help you, and no one is better than the Hokage. He explained as he showed his seriousness for the situation. Naruto nodded in agreement. Yeah, it makes so much sense. In addition, I might have the chance to access information about that man and his secret ANBU organization. He said, feeling disgusted as he thought about a certain old mummy. That bastard is the cause of every disaster many people suffered. I suggest we should get rid of him once we have the chance. Nah, he is still one of the Hokage's advisors and the prominent member in the council. We need to prove his crimes if we want to do anything to him. Naruto replied with a sigh. TCH, it's easy. Kurama scoffed as he rolled his eyes. I'm sure you still remember what he did to the Uchiha brat's family and his clan. How can I forget? It's one of the most disgusted thing I think he caused to Sasuke and then drove his hatred on Konoha. Naruto widened his eyes as the realization hit him. Wait, you're telling me, bingo Kit. We will use the truth of the Uchiha massacre for screwing with him and his hopeless plans. It's quite an idea, but are you sure it will be fine for Sasuke? Naruto asked with concern. Once the truth is revealed, there is still a chance he won't believe in the village and leave here. The blonde really didn't want his best friend and brother in all but blood to fall into the darkness anymore. Kurama let out a huff. I don't suggest you doing it for this village as I don't really care for its fate or anything. It's for your own sake, Kit. The ancient fox replied. The Hokage and hires hide the truth while you try to investigate and find it out. If possible, as far as it depends upon you, try bring Uchiha Itachi back and prove his innocent. In that way, you will gain the faith of the Uchiha brat, even he might only trust in you then, and it simultaneously lessen his capacity to go to the Snake Man in the future. Well, I suppose you're quite right, Naruto mumbled, rubbing his chin. But it won't be not easy to expose about his corruption, at least now. He admitted truthfully. You need a long-term plan for someone like him, so I think you should think of what you will tell the Sandaime Hokage and then the problem with the Uchiha brat. Yeah, but what exactly will I have to do? I can't just come in before Sasuke and tell him the truth. Kurama groaned in exasperation. Of course, you won't simply throw everything at his face because no way he will believe in you, he stated with annoyance. And so for that, I said you should go to meet your old Hokage at first because he knows the situation intimately. With his words, it will be more easy to deal with Uchiha. The blonde nodded in agreement. I see. So I will go to find Gigi then, he said. Not now. The fox replied quickly. Just tell him you're from the future. We will resolve them one at a time as you still have the time until you graduate. Focusing on training to improve your strength at first. Sure, I will leave it for my clones, and I will make sure I'm a better genin this time, he declared with determination. Kurama nodded, feeling satisfied. It's good you're smarter than you were. He ignored the glare his jailer shot to him. But you should keep your old habits in a while processing our training and plans in the dark. You mean you want me to act as the hyperactive and loud kid as I was before? The fox nodded his head. It will spare you many problems. Everyone will be suspicious if they see a kid who is supposed to be an idiot and pretty vanilla become calmer and more intelligent. Not to mention the League of Morons and Lunatics will think you're affected by me and took it as another excuse for abusing you. Kurama grunted, feeling the anger boiling inside him. Naruto sighed wearily. Suppose that I have to try to go through it again. He then beamed at the fox. But I know everything will be fine this time. I have you as my companion now, he said with cheerfulness. Kurama blinked at him in seconds, then smirking slightly. Whatever you say, he replied in a satisfying tone. All right, I think you should prepare now. It's night time now. There are not too many people there, so it's good time to talk to the old Hokage. The fox grinned. Okay, but I have to do something with my look at first. Naruto then approached to his desk, taking a scroll from the bottom drawer of the desk. He started fiddling with it, then making some hand seals when he was done to write kanjis on the scroll. In the puff of smoke, Naruto appeared in his old appearance, looking much thinner, shorter, whiskers on both of his cheeks, and he was in the usual orange jumpsuit. Well, I know it's strange to tell it, but this jumpsuit really is a kill me one, Naruto remarked, checking his former look. That goddess did you a favor for your outward appearance. Maybe it's even the best thing she did, the fox said mockingly. A tick mark got on his forehead. You don't need to rub in it, you know. He grumbled as he created some clones for training. After leaving a few instructions to his clones, Naruto jumped out of his window and landed on the ground expertly without a sound and headed towards the Hokage tower to meet the Hokage. I won't fail this time. I will save everyone and the world. It's my promise. Believe it. The Hokage tower. 15 minutes later, Naruto was in front of the door of the Hokage office. Behind that door was the Sandaime Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen, his beloved Gigi. Swallowing his saliva nervously, the little blonde boy turned the handle on the door and opened it. HM? Oh, Naruto-kun. How are you today? Naruto had to do his best to refrain himself from jumping him and giving him a bone-crushing hug. The man was like a real grandfather to him. He had been the only person in the village, besides Irika-sensei, Tuchi and Ayam, who hadn't thought of him as a demon and a failure when he was young. And he was the first one to die protecting the village in Naruto's life. The last time Naruto saw him, the old Hokage was a corpse revived by Orochimaru, and he had to watch his soul being ripped off his body right in front of him without being able to do anything to help. Despite being able to restrain his body, he couldn't help shedding a drop of tears. Naruto-kun, what's wrong? Hiruzen asked as he saw the boy crying. He stood up and approached to him, sitting down to his level. Why do you cry? Is there anyone bullying you? Tell me, he said with caring tone. Naruto shook his head. No, Gigi. I'm fine. I just get emotional a little, he replied as he wiped away my tears. Are you sure? You know you're able to ask me if you need something, Hiruzen stated. Really? So I want you to give me your hat, the blonde exclaimed with his famous foxy grin. Yeah, he might be more mature than, but old habits die hard after all. The Hokage chuckled at that. No problem. But you have to graduate at first and then prove your abilities with everyone. Sure, Gigi. I will become Hokage and the greatest shinobi in the world. I believe you're totally able to get your dream, Hiruzen said, smiling warmly. All right, so what make you find me at this hour? Don't you have your studies tomorrow? Naruto's expression became serious strangely. Hiruzen didn't miss it. I have something very important to tell you now. He suddenly stopped as if he just realized something. But first, Gigi, can you tell your ANBU agents in this room to get out and seal it? Naruto, ask him for summoning the Yamanaka and the Nara. And it's not your two friends. Kurama suggested in his head, and Naruto mentally nodded. And please call Yamanaka-sama and Nara-sama to come here. Naruto quickly added. The Hokage hesitated and surprised a little with his fuinjutsu knowledge, but finally nodded. 5 ANBU appeared from their hiding spots and flickered away. Naruto quickly realized a certain familiar chakra from the ANBU wearing the dog mask, who then left to get Yamanaka Inoichi and Nara Shikaku. Hey, why do you want Ino's and Shikamaru's father to come here? Naruto asked while waiting for Two-Clan head. With that way, it will make the old man easily by whatever you're going to tell, as he surely guessed the intention for it. About 10 minutes later, Inoichi and Shikaku entered the room. Once the door closed, Hiruzen's hands weaved through hand seals, and a barrier was erected, isolating the room from the world outside. Hokage-sama, you summon us. Inoichi spoke out. It seems there is something very important. Shikaku then noticed Naruto standing near there. And you're? He fully knew who was he, but they'd never met together before, so he pretended he didn't know. Naruto bowed respectfully. I'm Uzumaki Naruto. Nice to meet you, Yamanaka-sama, Nara-sama. He greeted with politeness. 3 men looked at him in surprise. Apparently, they didn't know that he could be respectful like that. It was not like they judged the Uzumaki with that, as he was an orphan after all. Naruto-kun asked me for calling you too. He has something to tell us. The Hokage said seriously. Naruto nodded in agreement. Yes, but at first I want to show you guys this. Release. Naruto canceled the Genjutsu, revealing his new appearance. Hiruzen, Inoichi, and Shikaku gaped at that, especially 2 shinobis. They looked like they saw a ghost, though it was not really wrong. In some ways. Yo? Yandame. The Hokage stuttered. The blonde boy mentally chuckled in amusing, but he wasn't too surprised. Inoichi and Shikaku were his father's close friends since they were in the ninja academy, while Gigi was always proud of him as a talented shinobi and the youngest Hokage in the history of the Hidden Leaf Village. In other words, they knew Namikaze Minato perfectly well. Sorry to disappoint you guys, but I'm not the Yandame, Naruto said, snapping 3 men out of their thoughts. What's the meaning of this? Hiruzen asked with stern tone. Shikaku and Inoichi nodded firmly as they stared at the little boy. Well, it might sound absurd, but Naruto took a deep breath. I'm from the future. He then started talking his story. That was the most absurd story I've ever heard in my life. I know, Gigi. Even I couldn't believe it myself when I first heard it. After Naruto finished his story, the eyebrows of the 3 older men in the room were twitching like crazy. So, let's recap, Inoichi asked with a strained voice. You fought a woman named Satsuki Kagaya with your comrades, got your power absorbed and got himself killed by her, having the world captured in a kind of genjutsu. Then you and the 9 Tails met a girl calling herself God or anything, messed with your look and then pushed you back to the past? Not really the past, I think, because she said she would send me to a specific period of time. But yeah, that's basically the story. Naruto answered with a nod. And you expect us to believe that bullshit? The older blonde man snapped at Naruto. Before that, you said you fought Uchiha Madara. He has been dead for half a century. He was killed by the first Hokage in the battle at the Valley of the End. And time travel? Oh please. No way something like that can ever happen. I'm telling the truth. Why don't you guys believe me? Naruto snapped back. His voice was full of irritation. Well, even to me, that story was too unbelievable to be the truth. Not helping, you fuzz, but actually, there is a simple way to confirm his identity. All 3 other males turned to Shikaku. Well, Hokage-sama, you are the one who is closest to Naruto since he was born, right? So just ask him something only you and Naruto know about. If he can answer it right, then he is the real Naruto. The pineapple head man shrugged lazily. Silence. Tell me again. How the heck didn't I think of something like that? Because it's such a drag. The Nara man shrugged again. Okay, Naruto, the old Hokage asked, after a sheepish moment. Where is our first meet, HM? Our first meet. Naruto squinted his eyes, trying to remember. Oh, I remember it. At that time, I was catching fishes in forests west of the village. We met when I was grilling fishes. You asked me for a fish. He smiled, scratching the side of his head. I'm sorry I mistook you as an old man who got lost in the forest. The Sandaime face-bombed. Yes, he is Naruto. No one know about our first meet. But that still doesn't prove what he said was right. Inoichi protested, then insisted. I request a memory check on him. I don't think that's a good idea, Inoichi. He is a child. Naruto interrupted the Hokage. No problem, he exclaimed, which made Hiruzen look him in surprise. Oh, come on, Gigi. I know you guess what I mean when I ask you for getting them to come here. The Hokage couldn't deny it. It's just that he now didn't feel comfortable as he allowed to check his mind. Finally, Hiruzen nodded at Inoichi, had his hand over his head. After a minute, the man let out a girlish scream and slumped to the ground. All the other men in the room suddenly cringed and felt an intense urge to cover their crotch. A roar of laughter echoed through Naruto's head. What have you done to him, Kurama? Naruto mentally yelled in horror. Oh, nothing, Kurama answered between snickers. Just gave him the best wedgie I've ever done. Another roar of laughter followed after that. You are so cruel, Naruto mentally replied with a sigh. He's telling the truth. Inoichi gasped out, his voice full of pain and humiliation. So it is true that you are from the future? Or I should tell from the other timeline with the Kyuubi, huh, Naruto? Sarutobi asked when Inoichi finally managed to stand up, while mumbling about something suspiciously sounding like, cursed bully demon. I assume you can fully control it, right? Well, yeah, but I won't use the word control, Gigi. He is my friend, my partner, and I will never force him to give me their power against their wills. Oh my god. I love you, Kit. Those words can send mixed messages, you know. This is a very crucial matter, Naruto, the old Hokage said in a very serious tone. You do understand that if this piece of information leaks out, there will be wars, don't you? Naruto nodded. Of course I do, Gigi. That's why I asked you to kick everyone out and seal up the room. But why did you let us know? Me and Inoichi, I mean, it's not like we have any close relationship with you before, Shikaku suddenly asked. It's because I think you two are trustworthy. Naruto scratched his head. Being the Hokage's tactical advisors and everything. Even Kurama thought so. Besides, if you aren't here, then how can I prove to Gigi that I'm telling the truth? Still, the old Hokage's voice rose again. To prevent anything that could happen, I hereby declare everything mentioned in this room today shall be treated as an EX-ranked secret, and everyone who hears about it except for ones in this room today shall be executed on the spot. Am I making myself clear? All three other people looked at each other and gulped. This is so troublesome. Shikaku groaned. By the way, I want to ask you one more thing, Gigi. Naruto spoke out, and the Hokage looked him. Can you make me a special genjutsu that can't be seen through easily, even with Sharingan? You know, my appearance. Hiruzen, of course, knew what the blonde was implying. It would surely create a chaos in the village if the villagers saw the present Naruto, as he looked like Minato's own reflection when the Yondaime was young. Not to mention from there, Naruto could be found out about his status and he would got himself into dangers from other villages, especially the Hidden Rock village. Alright, Naruto-kun, come closer. When Naruto got closer, the Hokage started a complicated series of hand signs that the boy easily realized that was in Fuinjutsu. A cloud of smoke then appeared, and once it was clear Naruto came back his old look. I think it will take me a moment to process all what I saw today, Inoichi stated in tired tone, rubbing his temple. So how long are you going to keep it in secret, Uzumaki-san? You know you can't be in this look forever. The Nara clan head asked. I don't know, but I will reveal it once I find the right time. Naruto replied, and Shikaku nodded at that answer. Alright, that's it for today, the Hokage declared as he came back his seat. Everyone can dismiss now, and please remember what I told before. It's for Naruto's safety, he said firmly. Hi, Hokage-sama. With that, 2 men and 1 boy left the office. Damn it! I'm getting too old for this shit. The Hokage cursed in his mind before he got back to work with his paperwork. Who would have thought that you would need to go back to the past to become a truly decent ninja? It is now only seen in your home though. Kurama teased the boy who had spent the whole night reading a Fuinjutsu book. The said boy sighed in annoyance. Frankly, Kurama, don't you have anything better or more interesting to talk to me? He grumbled as he turned the page. You're reminding me more of the lazy brat from the Nara clan. The fox said with a loud laugh. Leaving a clone here to read it for you, it's almost time for your academy. Taking at least a shower. Naruto did delay in listening to his friend's words as the blonde created a shadow clone to continue his work while he himself went to the bathroom and took a shower. He wasn't in such a hurry because he didn't want to arrive too early. After all, he well remembered he had no friend to kill the time except Shikamaru and Chuji, who were not usually in the academy earlier. After Naruto was done with his shower, he touched the kanji on his left arm that was a Fuinjutsu for the special genjutsu the Sandaime Hokage created for him to hide his appearance. The blonde was only in his true look in his apartment, and sometimes he released it outside at night when he trained, but he mostly chose a quiet, secluded place to avoid being seen by anyone in the village. Turning into the old look and looking in the mirror, Naruto once again admitted his new one was much better than this. He really wanted to show it out, but he fully knew what he would risk with that, so he patiently waited for it. At least until after graduation and assigning the team. Just wait, Kakashi-sensei. I will pay you back for what you already did to me in the test. Naruto thought while letting out an evil chuckle. Looking at the clock, the time had come. The blonde was breathing deeply, even if indirectly. He would see each of his friends who had sacrificed in the war or were captured by the infinite Tsukuyomi, and meeting them alive would be a tough task. Look, just calm down, Kit. I know you must be taking into account how emotional you are, but at least you try to control it. Remember that we need to make the best decisions this time. Naruto heard the fox and took a deep breath, trying to keep his sanity in control. Okay. Thank you, dude. Naruto replied with a cheerful smile, thanking himself mentally for having this friend with him in here, or he probably would have gone crazy if it weren't for him. Recovering his posture, Naruto then headed towards the place where he would spend the next 3 years of his life, where he would meet his beloved friends and his troublesome rival. At least that was what he thought it would be. Naruto left the building and adorned the fresh light as he took in a deep breath. He was a bit hungry, so he decided to head towards his favorite shop, which was probably opening for breakfast anytime now. As Naruto came in front of his destination, he squeaked by and found his regular spot as he rang a little bell to let his hosts know that he was here. Not a moment went by as a young matron came out in white clothing and apron, tying a cloth over her brunette hair to enslave it. Good morning, Naruto-kun. How are you this morning? Ayam said in a tender voice. Just like when Naruto saw Hiruzen, the blonde now had to hold himself off hugging the girl as he hadn't seen Ayam and Tucci since he left the village and went to the island turtle for his training with Killer Bee. Morning, Ayam-ne. How about you? Did the old man give you any trouble for waking him up? He replied with a grin. You know him. He's always lazy in the morning. Anyway, do you want your regular breakfast? Ayam said, turning the stove on with a pair of matches. Yes. But could I also get a couple of strips of crispy bacon? Of course. Any special occasion? Ayam asked, bringing out a couple of eggs. I'd rather have the extra calories to burn while going through Irika-sensei's lectures. You know how boring he can get. Naruto replied as he let out a sigh. Coming back to the past around this time, he had to go to the ninja academy once again. Although he was grateful he could meet Irika-sensei and had good friends in there, it brought back old bad memories that he'd prefer forgetting, much less going through them again. Don't worry, Kit. I'm here with you, you're not alone. Kurama comforted him softly. Thank you, my friend. Naruto mentally said as he smiled slightly before Ayam served him his ramen. Alright, time for that delicious ramen. Thank you for the food. Ayam chuckled as she looked at her cute guest gulping down food. Looks like I missed my favorite guest, eh? A familiar voice captured their attention. Tu-san. Ayam whined with a smile on her face. Yo, Tuchi-jizan. Naruto greeted him cheerfully. Tuchi nodded with a smile. It's so rare to see you early in the morning. Irika-kun do something to threaten you again. He teased. Your words really hurt me, Ji-san. Naruto knows Naruto is the ultimate prankster in Konoha, but Naruto is still a good boy. Naruto replied with a pout. Ha 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 ha. Just kidding a little. Naruto giggled as he gulped down his first half. As they all shared this hearty laugh, they broke apart to prepare for the morning. Naruto worked on his meal while the other two were preparing to cook for their guests. After Naruto finished his meal and paid for his meal, he exited with a promise to see them in the evening supper before walking to the ninja academy. Shortly thereafter, Naruto was in front of the door of his class. Although Kurama had told him before, Naruto couldn't help all feelings of nervousness to come to him. Swallowing his saliva, he opened the door and took a look around. Some of the students realized him and started to whisper or comment anything, but the blonde ignored all that. His eyes were sweeping around, catching the image of all his old friends, the Rookie Nine. The ones who had always fought beside him. The ones who had offered their own lives to protect him. The ones whom he always considered his precious people. And the ones he had failed to protect. Sakura and Ino were still arguing loudly. Shikamaru was still lazy. Choji was still munching constantly on his chips. Kiba was still loud. Shino was still calm and stoic. Hinata was still shy as always. They're all just like he could remember, as if it was just yesterday, when they were all together working together on rebuilding the village, fighting beside each other in the war. Smiling slightly, Naruto then turned to look for the last one who was his best friend, his brother in all but blood, and his eternal rival. Wait a minute. Naruto scanned around the room once again, trying to get any signals of Uchiha Sasuke, but he couldn't find anything. Instead, he caught the figure of a girl who was sitting next to the window, where was inherently Sasuke's one. Looking closely, Naruto noticed that girl actually had surface features reminiscent of his Uchiha best friend, with pale skin, straight raven hair, and onyx eyes. She looked quite cold and indifferent with everything and everyone around her. No matter many, both boys and girls were trying to start a conversation with her. It seems she was famous in the class, but the blonde wondered why he didn't have any impression of her if she was well known by lots of people in the class. Shortly afterward, the homeroom teacher, Umino Irika, entered the room and started his scolding speech to get his students back to their seats. Again, Naruto had to hold him back from hugging him to death as he saw his figure brother, who was the first one to support his dreams and expectations, the first one to recognize him as a shinobi, a member of Konohagakure. Trying to hold tears threatened to spill out, Naruto walked towards his seat and sat down. Irika took out his logbook to call the roll. He called one by one, until the name that got the blonde's attention. Uchiha Satsuki. Irika called loudly, "Here." Just then, Naruto was astounded as that was the girl who was in Sasuke's seat answered. Was there any other Uchiha besides Sasuke and Itachi? More surprisingly, a stoic voice spoke out then, and none other than the strange girl who looked like the female version of his best friend. What the hell was happening? Just like that, the roll call continued until Irika was done to read the list, and there was no Sasuke. That stunned Naruto for a while until the Ninetales snapped him by yelling loudly in his head. Luckily, he kept his yelp, but once again, he thought about what he had just seen and started to put the pieces together. He hadn't already seen Sasuke anywhere since he came here. There was a girl looking exactly like Sasuke, both inside and outside, and she sat in Sasuke's seat. The name of that girl was Uchiha Satsuki. The information was still processing in his head, and his eyes then widened when the realization hit him so hard. How the hell is Sasuke a girl? He mentally cried out in panic. Damn it! You don't need to scream like that, you know again, Kit. I see that clearly with my own eyes. Kurama complained in exasperation, though he also was in shock a little. But this is impossible, Kurama. It is something wrong. It's not possible that I made the change that would generate a consequence like this. What the heck is going on? Naruto almost shouted in his subconscious. I know, Kit, but you have to keep calm at first. The fox said while looking at his Jinchuriki, letting out a long sigh as he tried to put his thoughts in order. Good. I'm quite sure you know what the butterfly effect is. Naruto nodded his head. A small change that we make in our current present generates a range of possibilities that can happen in the future, which by the way can no longer be the same. So you also know there's no way you can change anything that explains the fact that the Uchiha is now a chick now. Kurama concluded as he gazed at the blonde who was still full of doubt. Don't tell me you forgot what the little goddess told you before she sent us here. Naruto was dumbstruck for a while before he gaped as he got his words. Damn that lowly shorty. She didn't mention anything about this. He yelled in exasperation. She said there were some minor differences that didn't have a lot of impacts. Kurama reminded, rolling his eyes. It's some differences, you know. Naruto replied with deadpan. It fucking means there is more something weird waiting for us. Whatever it is, surely there must be something that needed to be solved or we were not here now. In other words, we're the change. My current concern is whether there was any consequence beyond that. The nine-tailed beast saw the blonde with widening eyes from the shock of realizing the seriousness of the situation. I see. Naruto mouthed quietly. I hope it doesn't generate anything catastrophic. And that lowly? She didn't even give us any tips about this timeline, he said with a dry laugh, feeling his head throbbing with the weight of the information. It seems that everything won't be according to our plans, Kurama. We have to be twice as preparing as for every situation. He then groaned in irritation. Man, I will have to carefully study everything about this timeline. And maybe even Itachi is a kind of beauty. Don't you think it's getting a too loose kit? The fox questioned, feigning false indignation. I put up with your jokes, so get used to my time off. Naruto replied, laughing happily. You're impossible, Kurama commented, shaking his head interestingly. A few days passed before the first real contact between Naruto and the Uchiha girl. This time served for Naruto to evaluate the changes around him and, of course, also to learn the super sulky Ravenhead. In his memory, Sasuke didn't get along with anyone in the academy, and he even became more antisocial after the massacre of the Uchiha clan. No one was kept in his eyes. This Uchiha girl didn't seem all that different. She had the reputation as the Ice Queen in the academy. She was always arrogant, full of pride, and was idolized by the girls as a perfect kunoichi, and all of them did everything to earn her friendship. The boys were too busy falling over themselves to get her attention 24/7, but it was not like he could judge them as Uchiha Satsuki was really very beautiful at her age. At this moment, Naruto was lying on his small bed in his apartment. It was almost time to release the clones that were training somewhere, and consequently he would pass out soon after. But before that, he needed to talk to the lazy fox inside him. Kurama, Naruto called out quietly. What's up, Kit? The fox asked in a curious way. He could see there was something disturbing the blonde. Even if he now was more serious by the war, it wasn't his style to spend all day quietly. We already know our presence here has generated some very significant changes, so I was thinking, even though when Sasuke left the village and reached out to Orochimaru, he got strong, I think this time we should do it with Satsuki differently. Yeah, the Uchiha massacre still happened by the heir of the clan in this period of time, and Uchiha Satsuki was the last Uchiha in the village. Adding to Naruto's astonishment and horror, it wasn't Uchiha Itachi that was her sibling but another female version of the older Uchiha, Uchiha Izumi, and Madara, was a she-devil here. Naruto could nearly feel his head could be exploded at that time. I understood where you are coming from, but as you intend to prevent that Uchiha from fleeing away from the village, I doubt you won't be able to stay strong enough to prevent the Snake Man from putting the curse mark on it. Kurama was in his assessment. Let's say you have more opportunities to defeat her in the Valley of the End. What can guarantee she won't try escaping again later? Especially when you can't always stay close to her. A bond, Naruto answered thoughtfully. I will build a bond strong enough with her that she can't easily drop it down, he concluded with determination. Kurama let out a heavy sigh. Although I don't really like you befriend someone who may or may not hurt you in the future. I fully know why you want to try it. Good luck, Kit. For a couple of reasons, I feel that I and you will need it. He then closed his eyes as well as his Jinchuriki, who passed out shortly after finishing the dialogue and releasing the clones. Days later, the Shinobi Academy. Kurama was never righter than before. That was the thought of a certain blonde boy. He had spent the last few days trying to approach Satsuki in several possible ways. But that troublesome Uchiha didn't make it any easier for him. Her arrogance was such that Uzumaki Naruto wanted to punch her face every time he saw her. Exactly the way that he always felt with Sasuke. Naruto. Frankly, who the hell did that raven head think she was? Naruto. The blonde had never been more anxious for a practical class in his life. He longed to give some beautiful beats in that Uchiha. Naruto. Tobirama would certainly be proud of Naruto at that moment. The Uzumaki had never felt more like beating someone since he came to this timeline, and the damn furball in his mindscape never laughed so much in all his thousands of years. The antagonism between Naruto and that project of Uchiha Satsuki was a priceless comedy for the ancient fox. Naruto would continue to be stuck in his thoughts, begging curses for the Uchiha sitting next to him if it weren't for avoiding the chalk that was thrown right in his forehead. He then turned around, thinking of complaining, but once he caught the murderous look directed at him by his teacher, he was only able to gulp. "Yes, Irika-sensei," Naruto said nervously. "Pay attention in class or your grades will drop." Irika replied with a stern tone, but the blonde still felt the caring in his look, before he soon returned to write things on the boards. This time, Naruto had no bad grades as like in the original time. He remained on average because, as Kurama said before, too much prominence could attract unwanted attention that would be more of a problem for him to deal with. However, he wasn't going to be the dead last again. He got sick of being despised and looked down on by everyone around him. By the way, he wanted Irika-sensei to be more satisfied and proud of him, as he often found many ways to help him study, while other teachers obviously abandoned or sabotaged him. The little sermon and the chalk that hit his forehead got a short and discreet laugh in the raven-haired girl that didn't go unnoticed by the boy. "What are you laughing at, team?" Naruto insulted her with the nickname that lovingly presented the Uchiha. "From your incompetence, Dobe, what do you think it else would be?" Satsuki replied with a cocky smirk on her lips. Naruto twitched at that. "What do you mean incompetence?" he asked, placing his hand on the table with some violence as he squinted towards the girl next to him. "You can't even focus on your study and always cause trouble. What a great shinobi you are," Satsuki said, further increasing her mocking smile towards the blonde now in front of him. "TCH, that is coming from the arrogant princess who only broods and sulks in a corner without having a gut on communicating with the world. I'm wondering if you're slowly turning to a nerd." Naruto responded with his own grin, which successfully stirred her ire. "Do you care for repeating what you just said, Dobe?" the last Uchiha asked, grabbing his collar in anger. "And what will you do to me if I do and I don't?" Naruto asked back, also grabbing the collar of Satsuki's clothes. Everyone in the classroom at that time could see their faces were dangerously very close and sparks were visible from both their eyes. Kurama, meanwhile, was giggling with interest in the mindscape, wondering how he was able to forget what might happen in the next few minutes, as that scene should have been in the next few years. The fox then mentally made a mental note to thank a certain lowly god for providing him with so many funny moments. Naruto was martyred for being unable to make the Rasengan, as he faithfully planned to hit one in the fuse of the cocky girl in front of him. But what he didn't plan for happening was that Irika soon saw their quarrel, and he threw another chalk into him, but it hit on another student, Kiba, who was sitting in the front chair, as he and the blonde boy were closer than in his original timeline and wanted to be close to the blonde to easily talk to each other, and who got up in fright hit a headbutt on the blonde that was crouched on the table. The result of that fateful headbutt was nothing less than our cute little hero fell on the top of the Uchiha girl. Kai-a-area. Naruto is kissing Satsuki-chan. Damn it! That lucky bastard is even grabbing her chest. There were screams that could be heard echoing through the classroom. Naruto, who was on the top of Satsuki, was over the girl, kissing her on the lips while holding her right chest with his left hand. Getting out of the shock and ending the kiss, Naruto came off Satsuki while waving his arms in front of his flushed face. "Sorry for that. I was hit from behind, you see. It was all the fault of the idiot Kiba," Naruto tried to convince as he pointed to the Inuzuka, who smiled in an embarrassed way. "I'm sorry, dude. I don't think it can happen." He then let out a grin. "But at least there is something good coming to you, right?" he said mischievously. "Like hell," Naruto exclaimed angrily. "Uzumaki." A hoarse tone spoke out lowly, getting Naruto's attention, and a cold chill washed over him as he felt the dark aura. He slowly turned to face the raven head in front of him, who had her bangs covering her eyes. Uzumaki Naruto had no ability to predict the future, but he was sure of one thing. There was nothing good ahead, and he was never righter. It didn't take even a second as Satsuki jumped on the top of the blonde with a punch raising. If he was the old Naruto, he would surely be silent and took the fall, but not now, not when everything was not like that anymore. Naruto quickly grabbed her hand and pushed her away from him. Satsuki was a little stunned, but she got her calm at once and entered a taijutsu match with the damn Uzumaki. Two of them didn't care for being in the classroom, and the teacher even was there. They were kicking and punching, which sent chairs flying everywhere in the room. All students near there got as far away as Naruto and Satsuki, as they didn't want to be their target instead. "That's enough, you two. Stop immediately." Uzumaki Naruto. Uchiha Satsuki. A furious Irika roared in anger for the drama established in his class. At once, Naruto and Satsuki both ended their combat as fast as they started. The blonde looked at his teacher anxiously while the Uchiha was quite indifferent. She was quite nervous inside though. "You two. Get out of my class," Irika ordered as he pointed to the door. "You are dismissed today. I hope to see you very calmly tomorrow." He then informed with a calmer tone while letting out a long sigh. Naruto and Satsuki left the room in silence, not because they were ashamed of their actions. They fully knew there was another quarrel restart if they said something, and obviously another exchange of punches following it. They had already attached enough of their teacher's wrath, at least for today. They remained silent until they left the academy. Naruto decided to break the silence by speaking out first. "Hey Satsuki, since we missed class today, what do you think about going to train?" Naruto asked, hoping the Raven Head would accept his suggestion. He really needed to hit something now, and her pretty face seemed to be ideal. "HN, why not? I really want to crush your idiotic face," Satsuki replied, a smirk spreading on her face. "Do it if you can, you arrogant team," Naruto retorted, following the girl who had taken the lead and was going towards somewhere they could use for their spar. They walked for a while. On the way, Satsuki caught some glares or dirty comments, whispers from the villagers aiming at them, or rather at the blonde after her. The Uchiha didn't know the reason why, but she felt very uneasy and even a hint of fury as she saw them. Looking over at Naruto, he was ignorant of the treatments he was receiving, which made Satsuki more irritated and be curious at the same time. "Just ignore it. It's my daily." Satsuki was startled as Naruto suddenly spoke up. "Looks like they don't like that I'm walking with their mighty Uchiha-sama." The Uchiha raised her eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "I will let you know once I'm sure I'm able to trust you enough with my secrets," was his only reply, which made Satsuki scowl, but she didn't tell anything. After all, they even weren't in a good term. They soon arrived at the compound of the Uchiha clan. Naruto looked at everything around attentively and interestingly. He had never entered the Uchiha district when he was in the original time. He realized it was quite far from the center area, in the outskirt of the village. The blonde recalled what Tsunade had once talked to him about Senju Tobirama and his policies with the Uchiha clan when he was the Nidaime Hokage. Naruto released a heavy sigh. He respected Tobirama as the second leader of Konoha, but he really had little appreciation for his excessive concern over one of the village founders. As an indirect result of that outrageous precaution, the downfall of one of Konohagakure's noble clans had already happened. Both academic students walked to a training camp that was located behind the largest house in the district, which probably belonged to the clan leaders and their families. The Uchiha district was so big that only one person lived in there. No wonder Satsuki became taciturn and isolated herself from others. After entering the training camp, Naruto and Satsuki put themselves on guard, and it was not long to advance in each other. The Raven Head tried a right-hand punch to his face, which the boy deflected with a lateral turn. Taking advantage of the movement, Naruto took a kick at the height of her head. Satsuki, in turn, lowered herself on instinct, and she could feel his leg a mere inch away from her head. The Uchiha then tried to sweep the blonde, and unluckily, he didn't react quickly and was caught by her blow. She gave him a corner smile after that. Naruto was a bit displeased with his carelessness, but he immediately realized the girl lowered her guard a little, and he decided not to miss that opportunity. The blonde turned on his own axis, connected a kick in her belly. Satsuki grunted when she felt the kick connect with her stomach, hard, and when she hunched over, gritting her teeth, her mind's eye flashed back to that night, when she was in a rage fueled by grief had charged at Izumi, who had delivered a blow to her stomach. Stumbling back, Satsuki glared at Naruto. Suddenly, the blonde's features suddenly changed. Instead of the stupid spiky-haired blonde, there stood the source of her hatred, Uchiha Izumi. The Uchiha felt that familiar rage fill her, and she charged at her sister with renewed vigor, taking her completely by surprise with her increased speed. She laid into her with punches, then managed to knock her to the ground, jumping on her and straddling her. Consumed by her rage, the Uchiha raised her fist, ready to pound Izumi's head, just to sew her mouth curve up into a smirk. Good blows, Izumi suddenly said. When she spoke, Satsuki heard Naruto's voice, and her sister slowly warped back into the blonde, whose smirk faded to be replaced by a stern look. But that look isn't fit at all. I don't even think you're in your sanity. The last Uchiha widened her eyes and then jumped off the blonde. I'm sorry, she said quietly. It's fine, we were in a spar after all. But Naruto approached the girl. What were you looking at that time? Satsuki's eyes darkened as she lowered her head. I don't want to talk about it, she replied darkly. Okay, Naruto replied with a shrug. At least you're yourself now. They remained silent for a while. Satsuki was messed up with her thoughts. She had never thought she recalled her trauma between her match, and it drove her to attack Naruto viciously. Although the raven-haired girl didn't tell for her Uchiha's pride, she still felt a bit of guilt as she was able to harm Naruto unexpectedly, just because she was controlled by her hatred and vengeance for her sister. For the little blonde hero, he fully knew the reason for her previous acts, so he didn't blame Satsuki. But to avoid her unwanted suspicion about his behavior, Naruto pretended not to know anything. In his mind, he was setting his plans about what he would do with Uchiha Izumi, then the truth of the Uchiha massacre, and finally but not least, the council and a certain war hawk. The silence was suddenly broken by Naruto's belly that showed signs of life, which made Satsuki chuckle a little, just to cut it off then by the snore of her own belly, which generated a burst of laughter in the blonde and an angry look from the Uchiha. Come on, let's eat something, you idiot, Satsuki stated as she turned away with a flushing face. Naruto looked at her in surprise. Are you sure? I don't want to bother you by sharing your food, he said sheepishly as he scratched the back of his head. It's all right. By the way, it will be boring if there is only me in the house. With that, both of them entered Satsuki's house, getting to the kitchen. The Uchiha took over cooking the meal while Naruto waited for her in the living room. He wanted to help her, but Satsuki didn't let him as she claimed him as a guest. And knowing how hardened she was, he gave up. A little while later, Satsuki called him, and that was the first time Naruto had a true meal in a house with someone cooking for him. The food was very delicious, he admitted, but looking at the fact the Uchiha was a girl and lived in a famous clan that required perfection, it was no wonder. Everything would be fine if Naruto hadn't forgotten that it was time for his clones to come undone. Kurama tried to warn and tell him to go home, but it was too late. Naruto received all the fatigue from the clones and fell down unconscious, which had the raven-haired girl intimidated by fearing something happened to him. No matter how much Satsuki tried to wake him up, Naruto would only wake up the next day. There was no other way. She had to drag him up to the couch, straighten him, and cover him with a blanket so that he wouldn't freeze to death during the night. And that was how our blonde hero started his relationship with the Uchiha princess. It was not as planned as he expected, but everything was going well. When the sun was beginning to rise, a rooster crowed out the welcome of a new day. In the room of a big house that was in the Uchiha compound, Satsuki began to slowly wake up from her sleep. Getting up, she rubbed her eyes a little before looking up at the clock hanging on the wall. It was 5 a.m. now, still early, she thought as she left her bedroom. After working on personal hygiene, she walked towards the room where she knew a certain blonde kid should be in. Opening the door slightly, she took a look and saw that he was still sleeping with his mouth open on the couch. Satsuki decided to let him sleep and shut the door as softly as possible, as if she was afraid of waking him up unintentionally. She didn't know the reason why she didn't just simply enter the room and pulled him off the bed with the blanket, as he, after all, had suddenly fallen straight to sleep last night, and she reluctantly allowed him to spend a night in her house. I should prepare breakfast and come back to wake him up later, she mumbled to herself before leaving to the kitchen where she got a blue apron on. Better make the usual, except I have an unexpected guest today. She then went to make her family's special breakfast curry. Meanwhile, Naruto started to wake up. He got up, stretching his arms into the air with a loud yawn before he realized that the scene around him didn't look like his apartment. Looking around while gathering his thoughts on the reason why he wasn't in his home. Ah, right. I had a spar with Uchiha Satsuki yesterday and then fainted because of the fatigue from my clones. He then looked down and found himself on a couch with a blanket over his body. She let me sleep here and even tucked the cover around me. Naruto suddenly felt a bit warm to his classmate's kindness. She isn't too bad, eh? He thought with a slight smile before leaving the couch and walking around for about 2 minutes before finding the bathroom. After 15 minutes, Naruto left the bathroom as his nose caught an aroma in the air. This smell? Is curry? He thought as he followed the smell, leading him to the kitchen. When Naruto reached the kitchen, he saw the raven-haired girl with the apron on while she was setting the table. The apron was a light blue color, as it had the Uchiha symbol in the middle and had white snowflakes around it. Wow, she looks pretty adorable, he mentally remarked with an amazing expression on his face. Who can think that this girl and the Ice Queen of the Shinobi Academy is the one? Oh, what is this? You've fallen for the Uchiha brat? Kurama committed as he began to chuckle mockingly. Naruto got a tick mark on his forehead. Shut up, you damn furball. He growled as he decided to cut off the link and get Satsuki's attention instead. Good morning, he greeted loudly, being startled by his tone and out of sheer reflex. Satsuki quickly turned around and threw the knife in the direction of the blonde boy, whose head just dodged in time as the knife plunged into the wall mere millimeters beside his head. Naruto was no longer a too much noisy and hyperactive brat now, but even with his now calm and controlled personality couldn't refrain from shouting in horror. After all, this was far from the good morning he expected to receive. Are you crazy, you bastard? I know I bothered you by unexpectedly spending a night in your home, but you don't need to try to kill me by chance. He yelled in frustration as he saw how close that knife was to his face. Uchiha Satsuki had a dangerous aim. Who are you calling crazy, you dope? That's what you get for showing up out of nowhere and startling me. The Uchiha shot back while throwing an angry glare toward the blonde. All right, let it pass. I'm coming back to my home now. Naruto decided to argue with her as their relationship just got better a little. Thank you for allowing me to sleep in your home. I will see you in the academy later. He was about to turn and leave, but Satsuki stopped him at that time. Wait, she called out as she took the apron off. I made some of my family's special breakfast curry. You still have much time before the class begins, she said with a noticeable blush on her face. But Naruto didn't surprisingly realize it. Is it all right? You got a meal for me yesterday. I really don't want to take advantage of you too much, Naruto replied while scratching his cheek. Satsuki slightly shook her head. It's fine. By the way, I made 2 servings, so it would turn into waste if you didn't have it. Naruto stared at her for a while before giving her a soft and grateful smile. He then pulled out the chair and sat down. It's actually curry, he commented as he looked at the dish. Looks good. I never had curry before. Really? Are you serious? Satsuki asked in surprise. Well, how can I say? Most of now all the shop and restaurant owners always raise the prices on me. So the only food I ever really was able to either afford or eat was Ichiraka ramen, regular cups of ramen, and some groceries that I managed to get at a low price. He stated with a bit sad in his tone as he thought about the hatred of the villagers for Kurama and him. He knew that it would change in the future though. Satsuki's eyes widened in shock. He's only eaten ramen for most of his life? She thought as she began to feel a hint of anger and disgust toward the shop and restaurant owners who treated Naruto unfairly. Why do they do that to you? I don't know, and I also don't care for it too much. After all, it's not like everybody despises and disgraces me. I still have some friends and people to care for me, and they help me so much in my daily life, such as Irika-sensei, the Sandaime Hokage, Tsuchijizan, Ayamne, Shikamaru, Chuji. He then looked over at Satsuki. And you now, he added with a soft smile. Satsuki blushed crimson red at the smile he was giving now. She was a little happy that he viewed her as a friend, but no way she would voice it out. All right, let's forget the boring topic. How about we eat? I'm starving. Naruto wanted to avoid telling about it as much as possible. It was not like he was worried about Satsuki's reaction or anything, but the ANBU team was still secretly watching him outside, so he couldn't say anything carelessly. Satsuki was about to say something. Her stomach growled with a cute sound. This made her halt her question while also making Naruto chuckled at the sound. "Shut it, you dead last," she grumbled in a sulky tone, but it managed to lighten her mood a little as they decided to just let the subject go for now. "Ita dakamatsu," they said in unison as they began their prolonged breakfast. But just as Satsuki took a bite, she realized something after swallowing. She placed a hand on her mouth as she recognized the taste. "Damn, I forgot it." She was about to warn Naruto something, but the young boy took a bite and also already chewed and swallowed his curry. Naruto blinked a few times before his face slowly began to turn completely dark red. "Hot, hot, hot, hoot-toot!" He yelled multiple times as he comically started to breathe fire from his mouth, while he held his burning throat with both hands. "Water!" Satsuki quickly got up from her seat and went to the fridge, rummaging through it. "Juice? Meats? Eggs? Here it is." She took out a carton of milk and shook it well to hear its content. "All right, it's not past the expiration date," she said as she handed the milk to Naruto. "Here, drink this." Naruto took the carton and drank the entire thing, calming down in the process. When he finished and placed the carton down, he started to breathe heavily as a silly-looking milk mustache was on his face. "Mind explaining?" he asked with difficulty thanks to his swollen lips. "Sorry about that. The Uchiha clan has a certain way to prepare themselves for learning fire-style ninjutsu before learning the hand signs. You could say it's a family tradition, so to speak, and you just experienced it. By feeding them extremely spicy food that could permanently burn their tongues? Yeah. Ironically, it worked as our mouths get used to intense heat," she admitted while looking away with embarrassment. A bead of sweat dropped down his cheek. "I think I already know what happens when it doesn't work," he said dryly before turning back around in his seat and taking another bite of the special curry, cringing at the delicious but deadly flavor. "What are you doing, you dope? Stop, you don't have to eat it. It's way too spicy," she yelled in worry. "Man, you're too nice for your own good," Kurama remarked while rolling his eyes as he could literally feel the heat that Naruto was feeling that began to sweat from it. "Now I have to heal him from the heat." Naruto only shook his head. "No, it's really good. Besides, this is the first time anyone's made me something to eat besides Ichiraku. I don't want to waste it." He flashed her his famous foxy grin, causing Satsuki to flush a little before letting out a sigh. "Idiot. You should have just let me make you something a little less spicy," she mumbled as her heart felt strangely warm. Not a minute ago, Satsuki watched Naruto screaming at the top of his lungs, but now he was scarfing the same food down, all the while refusing to let her throw it away for something else. She could easily tell he still couldn't handle the heat, but he continued eating until his plate was clean. "Even I wasn't able to eat even half of it when my mom first gave it to me." She looked at Naruto eating the food that she once suffered for days to get used to like natural, and once he was finished, he picked up his plate and placed it in the sink. "Hey, Satsuki." Satsuki looked at him in confusion as Naruto turned his head towards her, wondering what he wanted. "Got any more milk?" he painfully asked as it looked like he was about to pass out. It was clear his mouth was burning worse than before. Satsuki blinked for a moment as her brain tried to process the request before she quickly ran back to her fridge, rummaging around for something to douse the flames her curry had created. Luckily for Naruto, she had a single-serve bottle of milk left. "Here, take it." She gave the remaining milk to the blonde. Naruto quickly took it and began to drink it. It didn't completely cool him down, but it was good enough that he wouldn't pass out from the intense heat. Thanks. You just save a life," he said between his panting. "It was what you get for your bigotry. Don't I warn you that it was too spicy? It was my family's curry, the Uchiha's fire-style training curry," she scolded with a huff. A small smile appeared on his face. "I just told you, didn't I? I don't want to waste anything someone made for me. By the way, it may be hot as hell, but it's really delicious," he replied sincerely. To that answer, all Satsuki could do was stare at the blonde, not believing what he had just said, or rather what he had just repeated. It was such a simple and stupid reason to burn his mouth with a clan's special curry, a clan that specializes in fire-style ninjutsu no less, but she couldn't help but felt delighted and got pink tinges on her face. Baka! She mumbled under her breath. At that time, Naruto looked up at the clock. Crap! We do only have 15 minutes until class. Satsuki was fine as she only lived 10 minutes away from the academy. But Naruto had to run back to his apartment, change, and grab some more ninja tools before he went to the academy. I'm getting going now. See you later. He then left through a window, dashing towards his apartment with no time to waste. 15 minutes later, Satsuki was currently sitting in her class in the academy. She sometimes glanced at the seat next to her while finding herself expecting a certain blonde boy. As usual, no one was enough brave to sit there because they were afraid of her cold and merciless aura no matter how much they idolized her. Except Uzumaki Naruto, who didn't have much interest in her reputation as the Ice Queen. I'll take attendance now. Aburame Shino, Irika called out loudly. Here the boy in a large hoodie and sunglasses replied. Akagi Mamoru, here, Buora. He continued on till he reached the last of his students. Uchiha Satsuki, here. Satsuki replied with an indifferent tone, which happened all the time. But for some reason, Irika vaguely felt it wasn't as cold as usual before he decided to let it pass, as he thought that she was in a good mood now without knowing that his favorite student was the cause for that. Uzumaki Naruto. He read loudly and took a look around the class. Irika sighed as he saw no sign of the blonde boy. He's late again, huh? Here. I'm here, Irika-sensei. A familiar voice yelled, and the door opened soon after that, revealing a boy with his kill-me orange jumpsuit. Naruto didn't really want to wear it, but for the sake of his act as the hyperactive troublemaker, he had to get it for a while until he graduated, at least. Just in time, or I would have to mark your lateness, Naruto. Irika said with a sigh as he proceeded to put his notepad down. Settle down. Yes. Naruto quickly walked toward his seat and sat down, but not before turning around and giving the Uchiha girl a wink as a way of greeting her. A blush suffused her cheeks before Satsuki looked away in embarrassment. She didn't want anybody to see her face now, especially the idiot next to her. Meanwhile, Naruto just tilted his head in confusion, as he didn't understand the reason why she turned away without telling anything. What did I do wrong? He thought inquisitively, still looking at the girl. Nope. It's just that you're so densey, Kurama commented with a sigh. But it was no wonder, as his Jinchuriki was a knucklehead after all. Oi! What the heck are you saying, Kurama? Naruto replied in annoyance. Irika continued on to the class and started going over the semester syllabus. He started on the requirements and current points, transferring over to this one, kicking off at the positions they left yesterday. However, Satsuki didn't really pay attention to the lesson. Instead, she usually glanced over at Naruto, who took a book from nowhere and read it most of the time. This scene was all too familiar to her, as he almost did it every day, but his record always remained above average rank. Sometimes Satsuki ambiguity felt like he stayed there as an average student on purpose, but she then dismissed those thoughts as there was no reason for him to do that, especially since he used to declare strongly that he would be the rookie of the year. He used to be noisy, annoying, and hyperactive. He even had been the dead last in the class, but all of those changed unexpectedly before some knew it. Naruto became calmer, quieter, and peace of mind, though sometimes he still teased or pranked the teacher and some kids in the class. All right, class, you won't leave with homework today. Students of the class were about to cheer, but Irika broke their happiness with his next words. But you will be assigned is a group project that will be required to be submitted at the end of next week. So please do think about what you want to do. Your subject is the Hokages of the Hidden Leaf Village. I don't want to fuss about partners, so please choose wisely, and if there is trouble about it, I will pick them myself and I won't be going with your choices. Understood. Hi, sensei, was the student's reply as the bell rang for the class to come to an end. As people started getting together, a group of girls and boys came around Satsuki to ask her if she will be their partner. She swiftly refused, all as she fully knew that the people who volunteered or wanted to be her partner were not really wanting to be her study partner. Instead, she took a look at Naruto as if she was looking forwards to him telling something. Naruto soon caught that look and wondered what she wanted. It was not like he didn't want to get her as his partner. Otherwise, he was more than ready to welcome her. However, Uchiha Satsuki was very famous in their class. Most people were aching to work with her, and Naruto didn't want to invite too much attention by asking her for forming the group. But she was currently staring at him as if she wanted him to do something, so he decided to take the chance. Oi, Satsuki. I'm doing this project alone and nobody wants to be my partner. That was natural as most of them were viewing him as the monster. Do you want to be my coworker? That was exactly the opening Satsuki needed, but she still had to keep her image as the Ice Queen and the mighty Uchiha. For a dobe like you, it's nearly impossible to do this alone, so I guess there's no other way, she said with a smirk. Naruto twitched in annoyance, but he said nothing to retort. She was an Uchiha after all, and she easily showed her attention or interest in anybody easily. By the way, it was better if she continued with her superior because it would help him to avoid unnecessary attention that the Kyuubi boy and the Uchiha heiress suddenly become more intimate. At that time, the troublesome civilian council would never leave him alone. Of course, it didn't mean he wouldn't receive hateful glares from his supposed classmates, but Naruto totally ignored them. So who is the Hokage you are going to choose? Satsuki asked while sitting a little closer. The fourth Hokage, of course. Satsuki stared at him dumbly. Are you serious with a project about the fourth Hokage? Why isn't it the Shodame, the Nidame, or even the Sandame? Not much is known about the Yandame except that he was the youngest Hokage in history, the hero of Konoha in the Third Great War, and that he was sacrificed in the Kyuubi attack after killing the demon fox. Oi! I'm still alive. No one is able to kill a living form of chakra, you know. Kurama yelled in protest, though he knew Satsuki couldn't hear him. Yup, it's surely a difficult project we're doing now. But thanks to that, not many people are ready to take the risk, which leads this project to become less competitive for us. I bet half the class will go with the Shodame while most of the others will take the Nidame or the Sandame because they can get a bunch of documents or books about them. But because of those, there surely are overlaps between the projects and we will have to spend extra time doing additional research. Then why don't we choose the difficult challenger at the beginning? Took a little bit longer than the easy one, but we don't need to ponder on the fourth too much. Just some new information is more than enough for us to get a high score. I also heard that the group with the highest score would be allowed to pass the written test without doing it in the graduation exam. Satsuki couldn't help but blink at Naruto's explanation. He had to carefully think about it before making his decision, and his reasons for his project made sense. The fewer competitors, the more opportunities they got the high grade, even the highest ones, and at that time, they could get away from the written test, which was very boring and annoying. By the way, I'm able to make sure that no one knows about the Yandame as much as me, Naruto declared with a confident grin, though there was a hint of sadness in his look when he said, After all, he is my father. All right, if you say so, I guess you can do it. Then where do we start? Satsuki asked, crossing her arms. At first, we still do the thing everyone does for doing a project, finding the references of the fourth Hokage in the village library. I will go to ask Gigi and some ninjas I get acquainted with in case we get stuck. Gigi? Satsuki asked while raising her eyebrow. The third Hokage. Do you really call Hokage-sama Gigi all time? Of course, he's my Gigi, he exclaimed with a smile. Why did I even ask you? The Uchiha replied while letting out a sigh. After discussing what they would do for the project, Naruto and Satsuki separated. The raven-haired girl came back to her home, while the blonde boy ended up in the Hokage office to tell him something. Hello. Naruto, how have you been? The Sandame asked with his grandfatherly smile. Oh, you know a little bit of this and a little bit of that, Naruto replied while taking his seat on the couch as the Hokage followed his lead with his favorite pipe and tobacco. I heard that you were paired up with young Satsuki for your project. I hope you two do well, and I'm really looking forward to your presentation. Thank you, Gigi. That's also the reason why I come here looking for you, Naruto said as he looked at the old man. I need your permission to access some documents about the fourth Hokage. He quickly changed his way to call Minato because there were ANBUs in the room. Hearing that, Hiruzen got a serious expression on his face. Documents about Yandame? Is that project about the fourth Hokage, you mean? He asked firmly. Yes, there are not many people that will choose Yandame because there is very little information about him and his history. I'm going to make good use of the opportunity to get good grades, even the highest ones if possible. It's for getting past the written test of the graduation exam, right? Naruto smiled shyly while scratching the back of his head. I can give you my permission, but there are still top secret documents I can't hand to you, you know. Aw, it's too bad, but that's unavoidable. Just give me everything you're able to give. As I said, not many people do the same subject, so I don't think I will need top secret information. But I also hope there will be things new and amazing I learn about my idol. Naruto exclaimed with sparkling eyes. The Hokage let out a chuckle. Don't worry. I will do whatever I can to help you in your study. He, however, was impelled by feelings of guilt as there was a hint of sadness in his look. Even now, you just can tell about your father as if there's nothing to connect you to him, though you know the truth. It really pains me to see you trying to force a smile. I'm so sorry, Naruto. I promise you can publicly say that you're their son someday. The legacy of Yondaime and Red Hot Habanero. Although Hiruzen tried to hide his downcast, it wasn't difficult for the blonde to see it from his look and the cause of it. The eyes were the window to the soul after all. It's fine, Gigi. Of course, I'd be lying if I said I didn't mind that you've exerted all efforts to cover up the truth about my identity for a long time. But I don't blame you because you're just trying to protect me. You're doing what is best for me, and I'm totally grateful, you know. Naruto really wanted to voice it out to comfort his grandfather figure. But he fully knew there were some root NBUs prowling in the shadow, and a single imprudent word was more than enough to cause Danzo to suspect him. All right, I think I will come back to my home now. I will come and get the documents tomorrow afternoon, after the class, he said in an attempt to change the topic. Sure. I will prepare everything for you and don't hesitate to ask questions if you get a problem. The Sandaime replied while rubbing his head. Naruto beamed at him. Yes. Thank you too much, GG. At that time, the grandpa-grandson moment was interrupted by a knock at the door. Hiruzen just coolly stated, "Come in," and the door opened, revealing the worst person that Naruto ever wanted to see. Danzo, the blonde thought while trying to hold his groan as the mummy man with a grumpy face unexpectedly appeared in there. Great, it's the damn war hawk. Kurama grumbled in irritation while rolling his eyes. What does he want again? The Hokage thought with a firm expression. Danzo glared at Naruto for a while before looking up over at the Hokage. We need to talk, Hiruzen, he said in a cold tone. All right. Hiruzen replied as he looked at Naruto, nodding at him. Understanding what the old man was implying, Naruto nodded back and was about to leave, but not before he bowed respectfully at Danzo. Although how much he detested this rotten and tyrant man, he was still an elder now and Naruto shouldn't have known anything about his dirty works now, so he had to pretend to show his respect for him. Waiting for the door to close and not to feel the boy's presence, Danzo started to speak up. What does that mean, Hiruzen? He asked coldly. I don't understand whatever you're saying, Danzo. Hiruzen replied calmly while sitting on his seat and picking the pen up, starting to do his paperwork. Don't pretend that you don't know. Are you going to reveal about the Kyuubi and the Yondaime to him? Right? The Sandaime let out a sigh. It was not uncommon that his former teammate usually somehow heard of his conversations. Of course not, he just asked for some documents for the project in the academy and I'm just helping him a little. He answered merely, Do you know the risk you're taking now? Danzo retorted as he narrowed his eyes. If Uzumaki Naruto finds out about his status now, it will be possibly endangering him and Konoha, you know. Yes, if it weren't for his father to have many enemies, especially a Wagakure, I soon told him about his parents. Hiruzen stated as he glared at the man. And he wouldn't have suffered greatly at his unknown of his family. He should have been given to me, to be trained and molded into the perfect weapon for Konoha. I've told you 1,000 times before and I'll tell you another 1,000 times, Danzo. He will not become one of those emotionless drones. Danzo scoffed in reply. You're a fool, Hiruzen. You are letting your emotions get the better of you. That boy should be trained, not coddled. We have been over this before, Danzo. This changes nothing. You stubborn old fool. If there was one thing Danzo was, it was stubborn. Both of Kumo's Jinchuriki are properly trained and fully synced with their Biju. If we do not prepare our own Jinchuriki for the future, then the only possible outcome for Konoha is defeat. I see your point, the old monkey conceded. However, as I said, he will never become one of your emotionless drones. His father and mother gave their lives to protect this village and entrusted their son to me. Therefore, I will show no mercy if someone dares to ruin his life, including you, he warned in a serious and firm tone, implying that he wasn't kidding about what he was saying. You will regret this, Hiruzen. Without any further words to be exchanged, the war hawk turned around and left the office in silence. As soon as the doors closed, the elderly Hokage ran a hand over his tired face. I'm getting too old for this shit. Meanwhile, in the place between the world of the living and the pure land. Looks like he's doing very well. Sitting on the simple yet beautiful white garden chair and nobly sipping her tea, the little girl with black hair said with a soft smile while looking at the crystal ball in front of her. You look in a good mood, Jikuken. A gentle yet indifferent voice spoke out. The little girl, Jikuken, turned around and saw a deep dark blue-haired girl in a white robe with her hands on her hips. Unlike Jikuken, she looked like a kind of serious person with sharp eyes and a stern expression. Good afternoon, Saikatsu-chan. There is no concept of day and night in this place, you know? It's no fun as you tell it frankly, Jikuken said with a pout before returning her attention to the crystal ball. Saikatsu breathed out a heavy sigh. I know you're interested in that boy, but please don't forget you're a god. And gods aren't allowed to interfere in the mortal realm no matter anything happens. Just the fact that you reincarnated Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto in another world caused more trouble for Kami-sama and Shinigami-sama. Then you have to know if I didn't get the permission of Shinigami-sama, there would be no way she allows me to do that, not to mention she is also interested in that boy. For Kami-sama, do you really think that he will dare to spite his wife? I guess not, Saikatsu replied with a sweat drop. Kami was the most powerful god and ruled as king of the gods, but he mostly didn't disobey or talk back to his eternal wife, Shinigami. By the way, I only reincarnated him and changed his appearance a little. It won't affect the balance. But you know this world is different from his original world. The dark blue-haired girl stated grimly. Not only the humans live there, Jikuken nodded as she took her teacup and sipped it. Nothing's for free. In fact, it's Shinigami-sama's direct order of reincarnating him in that world. Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto will have to not only confront his old enemies but deal with other creatures. By the way, it's not like he totally doesn't know about them. They're still mentioned in legends or fairy tales in his original world. It's not only dealing with them, you know. Yeah, I know. That's the reason why it's all right. I believe that boy will take care of unresolved problems that have bugged us for a long time, but we aren't allowed to involve ourselves in the living world. If that's Shinigami-sama's order, I have no reason to oppose it. Shinigami-sama is terrifying all time, but she still has a bit soft side. I can see Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto won't be too alone like he once used to be in his old world with Kami-sama's arrangements. What do you mean? Saikatsu asked while raising her eyebrow. You will see, Jikuken replied with a mischievous wink. 1 week later, Uchiha Satsuki was currently walking a few steps behind Uzumaki Naruto with a shoulder bag. They were on the way to the boys' apartment for a group study. During the past week, both of them spent a lot of time in the library, finding and researching dozens of books about the Yondaime and his history. As they expected, they didn't find too much information about the youngest Hokage except some details about his activities in the Third Shinobi War and after he became Hokage. For that reason, Naruto had to get to find more references to add more content to their project. Satsuki wondered where he would get those materials, until she remembered his relationship with the Hokage. It's a cheat for getting along with Hokage-sama. She mumbled. Huh? Did you say something? Nothing. It didn't take long for them to reach a block of apartments. Satsuki took a look at them, easily realizing that they were in a quite bad condition, old and looked about ready to collapse. But one that seemed to stand out the most was the landlord's house. Naruto led the girl to his apartment, which was obviously in the worst condition compared to the rest, with scrawled graffiti lettering the door and walls. But Satsuki still could read some of them, such as demon fox, monster, die, etc. Don't mind them, eh? Satsuki spoke out inquisitively as she heard Naruto's voice. Those troublesome things always remain there. No matter how many times I try to clean up, they will reappear the following day, so I decide to ignore them. Naruto explained with a heavy sigh. If it wasn't for leaving most materials for our project in my house, we should have had the discussion in your home instead. Satsuki slightly nodded her head without saying anything. After all, Naruto was an orphan and just relied on the allowance from the third Hokage, so it was quite understandable that he was living in poor and rough conditions. Therefore, she sometimes treated him to meals in her home or in his favorite ramen shop, though she disliked that unhealthy food. After entering the apartment, Satsuki sat down on the ground while Naruto went into the kitchen and prepared tea and a little snack for both him and Satsuki. Then he took materials for their projects, including some books and scrolls, and brought them to his guest. Alright, let's review what we learned about the yandere, alright? Lady first, please. There was a slight flush on her cheeks as Naruto stated her as a lady. Okay. The fourth Hokage, Namikaze Minato, the year of birth is XXYY and the year of death is XXZZ. He was viewed as the smartest shinobi in his generation, called the prodigious Hokage. His fortes were ninjutsu and taijutsu. He was promoted jounin at 15, the youngest jounin in a generation. He was renowned all over the world as Konoha's Yellow Flash, and became the most prominent and famous hero of Konoha by wiping out more than 1,000 shinobis of the Hidden Stones in the Third Shinobi War before taking over the Hokage position at 22, becoming the youngest Hokage in the history of the Hidden Leaf Village. However, his tenure is the shortest because he sacrificed in the Kyuubi attack. Then that is all you found? Naruto said with a sigh before sipping his tea. I can hardly blame you because it's the best we can get from the library. I'm adding more. The yandere wasn't the citizen of the Leaf. He moved to Konoha from the capital of the Land of Fire at 8 and lived in the orphanage until he graduated at 10. At 12, he was promoted to Chunin, and to Jounin at 15, but he was the second youngest Jounin in a generation because his students surpassed him later. He explained as he thought about a certain silver-haired perverted ninja. At 17, he became technically the youngest Jounin sensei ever, though he didn't receive a full team until he was 20, because he had been missing for 3 years. He indeed gained the Yellow Flash appellation from his famous deed in the Third Shinobi War, but that might not be true that he killed 1,000 Hidden Stone shinobis. In the war, the Tsuchikage sent 1,000 of our shinobi to the front line to invade the Hidden Grass Village, our ally at that time, and as far as I read from those scrolls, he just simply stopped the invasion by himself. This means he just killed about hundreds or even dozens of IWA shinobis. He was indeed the youngest Hokage in our village, and Konoha became the most flourishing and developed village after the war in the years of his reign. He has a good relationship with Hokage Guard Platoon that he was ready to teach them his famous technique to better aid them in their duties of serving the Hokage at any given time. He added with an interesting chuckle. Finally, his fortes were Fuinjutsu and Ninjutsu, not Taijutsu. His signature ability is the Flying Thunder God technique, which he gained greater mastery and versatility than its creator, the second Hokage. In the Kyuubi attack, he even blew away a tailed beast bomb with a technique that was a derived one of Flying Thunder God. Satsuki only stared at him dumbly before letting out a sigh. It should be expected of someone that has a relationship with the Hokage, I suppose, she said in a defeated tone. But what is the tailed beast bomb? I guess it's all right to tell her. After all, they're just techniques. Naruto thought to himself, the tailed beast bomb is the ultimate technique of tailed beasts. A tailed beast creates a tailed beast bomb by gathering and balancing chakra in its mouth, shaping it into something like a sphere, and then firing it at the target. Naruto explained while recalling his and Kurama's battle with other tailed beasts in the Fourth Shinobi War. Tailed beast bombs are very destructive, creating explosions that are visible from incredibly far away and that vaporize almost everything in the blast area. The extent of the damage is dependent upon how the ball is fired and how much chakra it has. Its standard size is even enough to easily vaporize some mountains at the same time. Terrifying, Satsuki commented with a gulp. It was really a miracle that Konoha still could remain here. What about the technique that blew the tailed beast bomb away? What is it? It is Flying Thunder God. Guiding Thunder technique, a space-time barrier technique. I don't really know about it much because Gigi told me about it in his improvisation while talking about the yandere. By the way, there are other derived techniques of Flying Thunder God such as Flying Thunder God Second Step, Flying Thunder God Slash, Spiraling Flash Super Round Dance Hall Style 3, etc. Man, he's nearly a master of space-time techniques. I know you idolize the fourth Hokage and know him perfectly well, but even his signature technique and its developments, well, He is my idol and the best Hokage after all. Naruto replied proudly. I even can claim that I'm most knowledgeable about yondaime in the village. Great. A fanboy of the fourth Hokage. That's just great. Satsuki said with a sigh of exasperation. Oi, at least I don't do anything such as collecting his images and posters or buying the yondaime dolls as your fanboy and fangirl did to you. How the hell do you know that? I usually go around the village and sometimes catch your creepy fans that follow and take many pictures of you. Who are they? Tell me and I will beat the crap out of them later. How should I know? I just happened to pass by them and it's not like it's a big deal for you, Ice Queen. Naruto said in a teasing tone. Aren't you one of them, are you? Because if you're... Be careful on your way back home. Satsuki stated evilly while giving him a dark smile. No thanks. An Ice Queen is not my type. Naruto replied as he looked at the girl with deadpan. For some reason, Satsuki oddly looked quite upset, but he didn't pay much attention to it as he continued. Alright, let's back to our topic. Yondaime was not only good at space-time ninjutsu but also proficient in the nature transformations of fire, wind, and lightning, and his natural speed and prowess with the body flicker technique were immense. He could easily outstrip 3 other Kage-level ninjas and engage an enemy or retrieve an ally before anyone realized what he was doing. Body flicker, eh? There was someone in my clan gaining a nickname that was involved in that technique if I'm not mistaken. It was more than easy for Naruto to guess that person. You mean Shursui of the body flicker? He asked. Satsuki widened her eyes as she heard the nickname. Shursui? Wasn't that the name of Izumi's best friend who was supposedly killed by her killer sister? The Uchiha gritted her teeth when a look of pure hatred flashed across her face. Hoi! Satsuki was taken back surprisingly as Naruto clapped his hands vigorously in front of her face. Good. You look better then. What the heck are you doing, you dope? You startled me. Satsuki exclaimed in irritation. You looked ready to commit a slaughter on somebody you know, so I had to do something to save myself. Man, your previous look really scared me to death. Sorry. Satsuki apologized as she looked down, her hair covering her eyes. I didn't mean to scare you. It's just that I remember about some worst memories. Worst memories? That Shursui guy did something awful to you or anything? Nope. Satsuki quickly shook her head. He was my cousin and got killed by that bitch just because she wants to get more power. She growled with barely controlled fury. Hoi, for God's sake. Can you stop doing that, you idiot? I'm not in the mood for your ridiculous joke. Then you should stop making that murderous expression or someone can mistake you for a serial killer. It's not applicable to an adorable face of a little girl. Satsuki oddly felt a warm blush rise to her cheeks. Well, what are you saying, you dope? Who's adorable? She exclaimed in embarrassment as she glared at him. I'm an Uchiha, an elite. I'm not adorable. Yeah. An adorable mighty Uchiha. Naruto said mockingly. Why you? Satsuki growled, though it could be seen that a blush suffused her cheeks. Just kidding a little. But why did you suddenly become that? If you have problems, you can share me and I will help you solve them if possible. Naruto said in a sincere tone. The Uchiha just stared at him before looking away. She didn't know what to do. She knew Naruto meant well as he just wanted to help her with her problem, and she easily felt his true sincerity in his tone. Satsuki wouldn't admit it, but she was really grateful he did. However, it didn't mean she could tell him about the massacre of her clan. It was not like she didn't want to talk to him, but she was afraid of bad memories and nightmares that always haunted her. Satsuki still remembered how devastated she felt when Uchiha Izumi showed her how she carried out the massacre, how she slaughtered each person in the clan, how she cut down their parent, and how she humiliated her and showed her those scenes over and over again. Even now, a few years later, Satsuki couldn't forget that terrifying day and nightmares still came to her during her nights of sleep. That was the reason why she always felt very uncomfortable getting reminded of the Uchiha massacre. Alright, getting back to what we were discussing. Naruto spoke out to change the topic as he realized how uncomfortable the atmosphere was currently. He should have known it. It was never easy to recall the death of your relatives, not to mention that Uchiha Izumi made it much worse by causing emotional trauma to her, as well as what Uchiha Itachi did to Sasuke in his original timeline. After about more than 1 hour, Naruto decided to call it a day and concluded the discussion. He invited her for dinner, but they said nothing throughout the meal until Satsuki decided to go back home as it was now dark. Naruto looked at her figure until it completely disappeared, before breathing out a heavy sigh. It seemed that he had to think more carefully about his plans. Look like I have to have a serious discussion with Gigi. It's more complicated than I think. Clearly, it's not only political trouble but also a matter of honor for Konoha. One of two noble clans helping found Konoha plotted a coup d'état to overthrow the Hokage, and then one of the village's most loyal ninjas was forced to kill all her clan's members except her sister by the order of a rotten man behind the Hokage's back. What do you think the kind of chaos will plunge into Konoha once everything is made manifest in the light at present? Kit. Yeah, I know. That's the reason why I want to find the best way to clarify the massacre without bringing negative effects on Konoha. Too much, Naruto stated grimly. Enough to keep the village from internal dissension and unnecessary conflicts, but it will be difficult to avoid the decline of the Hokage's prestige. As a direct result, he has to bear some responsibility for allowing the civilian council to wield too much power that shouldn't have happened in a ninja village and his indecision in political issues. Kurama said sternly. Naruto breathed out a heavy sigh. As much as I hate to admit it, I have to agree with you, he replied. He could have retired, but the death of my father caused him to take the hat back reluctantly and settle down everything after the Obito's attack. He's too soft-hearted to remove the fucking mummy out of his group of advisors. Senju Tsunade is clearly better than him at restraining power-hungry idiots and keeping the necessary hardness no matter who is in front of her. Heh! Never imagine that you praise Bachan, as you usually make fun of her whenever you have the chance. Naruto smirked smugly, because she is also a troublesome drunken gambler in case you forgot. The ancient fox grumbled. I can't deny it, the blonde said with a sweat drop as he turned serious back. Anyways, I still think we should do something instead only training and observing situations as Danzo and his route is less active now. Kurama raised his eyebrow. What do you have in mind? He asked. We need to meet Gigi first, Naruto said as he prepared for going outside. 1 hour later, the Hokage Tower. Sarutobi Hiruzen was having a moment of relaxation after he just spent all day on one of his hellish missions, doing routine paperwork. Normally, Hiruzen would enjoy tea or read the precious book that was hidden in the drawer, and its key was only owned by him or watched Yandame's son through a crystal ball. The Sandame let out a sigh. Thinking of Yandame's son, Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto made him ponder many things around him. From the truth that he was no longer the Naruto he knew but the one from a different dimension to his appearance transformed into the copy of his father. After Inoichi talked to him about everything he saw in the boy's memories, the Hokage sighed in relief that most events weren't too far away from whatever already happened in this dimension at the same time. Keyword. Most. There were, however, differences between two timelines. One of them was that many Uchihas are males. Uchiha Satsuki was Uchiha Sasuke. Uchiha Izumi was Uchiha Itachi, and Uchiha Madara still was Uchiha Madara, but the male version, Hiruzen would have surely laughed at the irony of the situation the young blonde had if it weren't for the biggest trouble that caused a heavy headache for him in the last few days. The Hokage was snapped out of his thoughts as a knock sounded at the door. Who is it? He asked. It's me, Gigi. May I see you for a moment? He heard the familiar tone from outside. I have something to tell you. Hiruzen became confused as he was wondering what made Naruto go to find him, especially at this hour when he should have slept in his apartment. Come in, Naruto-kun. A few seconds later, the door was opened and the blonde boy slowly stepped into the room. It is rare to see you come here at this time. What is it that you want to tell me? The Hokage asked with a soft, caring tone as if a grandfather was talking to his beloved grandson. Naruto gave him an innocent smile. Well, I had trouble sleeping, so I decided to take a little walk. When I think it's time to come back, it's a little late and, the area where I live isn't really a nice place. He explained with an awkward expression. On the surface, it was usually seen that Naruto went to find the Hokage and seek to stay overnight when it was quite dangerous and risky for him to come back to his apartment at this hour. And the Sandame Hokage already had a reputation for having a soft spot for the little blonde as he was ready to go along with his wishes in his own ability. After all, Hiruzen wanted to make up for the suffering and burdens that Naruto was dealing with. However, it was different now. The little boy in front of him wasn't a mere child anymore. Or rather, a young man in the body of a child. The veteran leader of one of strongest ninja villages was, until now, still slightly dazed by the existence of space-time traveling and the parallel universe, even after he was told by Inoichi, who had taken a look at Naruto's mind before, but he couldn't overlook the fact on the ground. I see. The Hokage answered with a chuckle before he stepped forward, taking hold of his hand. I've just finished my routine work and kinda tired, actually. Let's get some rest now. Okay? I can tell you bedtime stories about Konoha ninjas and Hokages. Awesome. I'm counting on it. Naruto cried cheerfully as he followed the Hokage walking out of the room, but not before he glanced at the ceiling. The presence vanished. The blonde let out a sigh of relief before getting a ghost of a smirk on his face. Old trick, but still works. The Hokage's private room. Hiruzen closed the door after ordering NBUs all to dismiss, leaving him and Naruto alone in the room. All right. Do you have anything you'd like to tell me? Hiruzen asked seriously, as he knew that it was desperately important or they wouldn't be here. After a few visits to the Hokage office, Naruto himself suggested that they should only discuss sensitive subjects in a place more private and confidential yet regular than setting up silent barriers each time, which was able to create doubts in Danzo and his supporters or spies in the village. And there was only one place that greatly met those demands, and Naruto could find various acceptable reasons for his presence along with only Hokage. No matter how cheeky and cunning he was, Danzo still wouldn't too foolish to order his rude agents to break into and eavesdrop on the Hokage's private room, which was heavily guarded by elite NBUs and covered by countless silent and warning seals, especially after Hiruzen gave him the order to disband Root. The Sandaime might be a little tolerant of the War Hawk due to their old friendship, but he still had his own limitation that shouldn't be tried. Yes, Gigi. This problem's critically important and very dangerous to tell in a place that is easily watched and eavesdropped on by unwanted idiots. Naruto replied seriously as he looked the Hokage in the eye. Of course, I'm fully aware of its consequences, and I had to consider if I should ask you about it or not, as I also want to accidentally avoid causing harm to her faith on you and even the Hidden Leaf Village. The Hokage swallowed nervously. It was anything but normal if Naruto spoke of a reference to him and the village, and the her he was implying. However, after carefully thinking of everything in the original timeline, I realized that a lie can cost you many things and the truth should always be told, whatever the cost. The blonde declared with a firm tone. There's always only one truth, but it can be bent and taken advantage of by someone that has bad intentions. Take, for example, me. I know the truth about Kyubi from a traitor who comes with bad intentions. If Iruka-sensei wasn't there at that time, he could successfully break me with his words, and I even could become the monster that the villagers always view me as. Yeah, he knew. Hiruzen really appreciated Iruka for that, as he overcame his hatred for Kyubi and recognized the blonde boy as Uzumaki Naruto, the ninja of the leaf, not the demon fox that attacked their village and caused the deaths of hundreds. All right, I see what you mean, the Sandaime said, but I still don't get your point about what you want to talk about. There was a moment of silence before Naruto decided to speak out. It has to do with Uchiha Izumi. The old Hokage stiffened before breathing a heavy sigh. He soon had an idea about her, and only a girl who had a good relationship with the blonde, Uchiha Satsuki. I trust you know what really happened during the massacre in your timeline, right, Naruto? He asked quietly. Naruto nodded his head. Yes, I do, he stated. But because this is another timeline and there are significant differences from my timeline, so I think it's better to ask you. Hiruzen sighed once again. Who would think those words from a 9-year-old kid? All right, Naruto. The truth is, he went on to inform the blonde of everything that happened on that fateful day of the Uchiha clan. Meanwhile, Naruto listened to him seriously. There were moments when he widened his eyes in shock but quickly regained his composure. It was not too different from what he was known in his timeline. After hearing the story from the Hokage, his bangs covered his face as he lowered his head before breathing a long sigh. Then it's not too far away, the truth in my timeline, he said as he rubbed his forehead. Gigi, you have known about this for 3 years. He then glared at the Hokage with a look of displeasure. And you're not going to tell Satsuki, are you? Hiruzen nodded solemnly. The council was against it. Besides, I fear that if Satsuki knew, she might go mad from the revelation. She will be surely very pissed off, Gigi. Naruto broke in with a stern response. You prefer other people planting lies into her head and making her even crazier? During my timeline, Uchiha Sasuke was mindfucked by his brother Uchiha Itachi twice, then marked with a cursed seal by Orochimaru, making his head even more of a mess, and was finally told a version of the story without all the important facts by an enemy who had a deep hatred of Konoha, which made him an even more deranged person who tried to destroy the village to purify the name of the Uchiha clan. He nearly yelled in anger. All because there was no one who told him the whole truth about that incident. And you think that is better for Satsuki? The Sandaime Hokage was stunned, horror-struck. He hadn't even thought that his hiding the truth could make such an impact. It already took Naruto a while to calm his feeling down before he continued. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have spoken to you like that, he stated with a hint of guilt. No matter how many mistakes Hiruzen made in his life, Naruto still viewed him as one of the precious people in his life. I know you didn't mean to hide the truth because it has left you with a dilemma, as the Uchiha clan really planned a coup d'etat against you and Konoha, which would lead a civil war and even bring disaster on the ninja world. As a Konoha shinobi, it's also really difficult for me to accept it. By the way, it's also Uchiha Izumi's will that her younger sister will kill her and become the hero of Konoha, he said with a heavy tone. But still, I strongly advise against killing all people of the clan. It's not doing us a favor but siphoning the village's strength, and not all of them agree to follow the coup. In addition, they wouldn't conspire to revolt for nothing, I'm sure. Sarutobi Hiruzen looked down in shame and regret. Every one of his words pierced like a sword that could cut his heart into million pieces. Danzo did everything behind his back, but it was still his responsibility, as he failed in his attempts to pursue peace between the village and the Uchiha clan. He was powerless to stop baseless claims about the Uchihas after the Kyuubi attack, which put a strain on their relationship with Konoha. Slowly, the straw that broke the camel's back, plus their superiority complex, and a coup d'etat was hardly unavoidable. I, however, can't disagree that it's better not to tell Satsuki the truth, at least not now, Naruto said reluctantly. The truth is very important, but only if we choose the right time. Otherwise, it could be worse than a lie. Hiruzen couldn't help to feel impressed with his quote. Naruto was really thoughtful and mature. Satsuki's just 10 now. I don't think she's enough sane to take the harsh truth, and it can become more resilient than now, he admitted with a defeated sigh. That is why I suggest that we will keep it until after she at least graduates from the academy, and I'm sure you will need the time to prepare for your revelation. Still a little too soon, you know? Gigi, Uchiha Satsuki is my classmate, close friend, and comrade in the future, the blonde stated in a strictly firm tone. I hope you understand what you have to do when the time comes. If you don't do it, I will, because I don't want to lose one of my friends to madness and hatred. Not this time. That was not only a request but also nearly a command. The old man dumbly stared at the blonde boy whose eye was strongly consistent, showing that whatever he wanted to say wouldn't weigh into his decision. Once again, Sarutobi Hiruzen saw the image of the fourth Hokage from the little boy in front of him. His look. It's the same look Minato got when he made decisions and encountered active opposition from the Leaf higher-ups. The look said, I don't give a damn about your ideas, you idiot. Looks like Naruto not only got his appearance from his father. Minato-kun, I'm sure you must be proud of your son, he thought with a small smile. And I hope you also won't be upset with me as I decide to talk to him about your secrets. Now or never. I don't want to hide anything truth from the deserves. Naruto-kun, I suppose I have to keep you up all night. Naruto raised his eyebrow. What do you mean, GG? He asked confusingly. Because I'm about to reveal something that can be considered as X-rank secrets of the village. Naruto widened his eyes in shock. Secrets with X-rank were top secrets that were above S-rank ones and known by only the current Hokage and a few allowed people. When the current Hokage retired or passed away, the successor Hokage or the alive former ones had no authority to find out X-rank secrets without permission from that Hokage. That was what he was explained by Jiraiya. Are you sure, Gigi? X-rank secrets aren't something that is able to open with the other. Although he desired to know his father's secrets, Naruto still didn't want to give the Sandaime any trouble if by some mischance someone found out about this conversation. Hiruzen only gave him a chuckle. "Don't worry. I got the acceptance from your father and sooner or later you will know about it," he said sincerely. "As his legacy, you have the right to know about it. And I also need to let you know in order to prepare yourself for what is to come." He said the last part with a strongly serious tone. "Gigi, you really worry me with those words, you know. You should start worrying about it because my first intention is to reveal them to you when you're jounin. But after what I saw this whole time, I think you're able to be known these secrets because you're not simply a child at the moment. I'm glad you appreciate me, but it still seems to make fun of me in some kind of way," Naruto stated with a sweat drop before getting a confusing look on his face. "So, what secrets are you about to tell me now?" Hiruzen looked into Naruto's ocean blue eyes with firm seriousness, which grew tense for the blonde boy as it showed how much important what he was about to listen to was. "Naruto-kun, Namikaze is not only a normal surname. The Ninja Academy." Satsuki was currently in her class, putting a hand beneath her chin and desolately watching a team make a presentation on their project about the first Hokage. What it's about was... This was the fourth presentation about the Shodaime, and she would expect nothing less, but it ended as quickly as possible. As might be expected by Naruto, most of the teams in their class picked the Shodaime, Sandaime, Nidaime, and finally Yandaime with her team and another one. Talking about that idiot. Turning her gaze toward the next seat, Satsuki caught the sleeping figure of her partner, with his spiky blonde head down on the desk. The Uchiha girl wasn't really surprised because this wasn't the first time Naruto fell asleep in class. He even slept throughout the entire study sometimes. Of course, Irika often reproved him for his sleep habit, even having him in some detentions, but everything was back in order. Fortunately, it didn't affect his study results as his grades, from theory to practice, were still within acceptable levels, which partially pleased their homeroom teacher. "All right, good work, Sakura, Ino," Irika remarked while carefully turning his notebook's page. "Your research makes it clear how the Shodaime and his clan founded Konoha along with the Uchiha clan and his key role in building and developing the village. However, there are still many similarities to other teams and it's not coherent enough, so I decided to give a C to your work." Both Sakura and Ino nodded with cheerful smiles. C grade was quite enough for them to be excused from 3 of 7 written tests, and they only needed to learn for the other 4. Next, Uchiha Satsuki and Uzumaki Naruto. "Your subject is about the 4th Hokage?" Irika exclaimed while looking at them in surprise. "Yup, Irika-sensei." Naruto, who was awake since only God knew when, replied sleepily while Satsuki only nodded her head. "It doesn't really surprise me because of his obvious admiration for Yandaime." Irika thought with a gentle smile. "All right, you too, as only your and Shikamaru's team come up with this subject. Show me your knowledge about the 4th Hokage of the Hidden Leaf Village." "Yes, sensei. The 4th Hokage's name is Namikaze Minato. He is..." It was first reported by Satsuki, as she just simply talked about the 4th while Naruto would handle answering questions from Irika and Mizuki. Speaking of Mizuki, Naruto stealthily glanced at the white-haired Chunin aka Orochimaru's spy. He had to admit that Mizuki was really a good actor because he even managed to fool him with the mask of a caring teacher while he, in fact, sabotaged his tests on purpose many times. If it weren't for Irika-sensei, Naruto might have never graduated from the academy. Naruto already reported to Hiruzen about Mizuki and the old Hokage was going to order to arrest him, but the blonde boy didn't recommend it. The reason for that was that it could alert Orochimaru and there was insufficient evidence to support their claim. The best way was to set a thief to catch a thief, just pretend like they had no knowledge of his betrayal and secretly watched him. Of course, the Sandaime would do his best to limit the amount of information he was able to collect while the task of tracking was assigned to our blonde hero. Calling it the task of tracking, but all that you do is send a clone to watch him around and report to the Hokage. Kurama mocked. "So what should I do? That fool does nothing but scout around and dig for information as an amateur. Is he really Orochimaru's good spy like what he used to say? He's not really an amateur as he managed to fool you, the old Hokage, your teacher, and many other ninjas. Maybe he hasn't gotten anything well and useful yet, so he has to lay low for the time being." Naruto snorted in contempt. "It just indicates that he's a good actor, not a good spy." He retorted, "Let's drop the subject about Mizuki. What do you think about our conversation with Gigi last night? To be honest, it's beyond all my imagination, the fox admitted grimly, but at least it explained the unique feeling we've already gotten since we came to this timeline. Not only Uchiha's female version, but also this now. My head is really ready to explode. Naruto mentally groaned in exasperation while hugging his head. At least not only your mother is from a clan now. It's not really something good, you know. In fact, I'm in an even more dangerous position than before. Good job, Satsuki. Now we have a few questions about your project. Well, you're the answerer, right, Naruto? Iruka's voice pulled Naruto off his conversation with the tailed beast as he turned around. Yes, Iruka-sensei. I'm completely ready for anything you and Mizuki-sensei throw into me, he exclaimed in excitement. Very good. The first question. The fourth Hokage is known as the Yellow Flash, so why did he get that appellation? There are two suitable explanations for it. First of all, he has very cool yellow hair. Like me. Satsuki nearly slammed her head on the table while Iruka was staring at him blankly, and Mizuki got a fake chuckle as if he saw it as somewhat funny. The second reason is his signature ability, the Flying Thunder God technique. His exploits with this technique gained him the moniker Konoha's Yellow Flash. What do you know about the Flying Thunder God technique? Is it the fourth's own invention? The blonde boy shook his head. Nope. The Flying Thunder God technique is a space-time ninjutsu created by the second Hokage, Senju Tobirama. It allows the user to transport themselves to a given marked location instantaneously. To activate this technique, the user places a special seal or technique formula to mark an intended destination. After this is done, they can enter a dimensional void at will that instantaneously transports them to the location of the seal. He explained fluently. Great. Then what's the difference between Naidame-sama's and Yandame-sama's Flying Thunder God? Mizuki suddenly asked, mentally smirking as he knew that it was a quite difficult question. Naruto twitched in annoyance. It was obvious that the damn traitor would seek some ways to sabotage him again. Unfortunately for him, I'm no longer as easily bullied as before, he thought while grinning mentally. Showing him what you're capable of, Kit, Kurama said with a growl as Naruto nodded slightly. Well, it's really a difficult question, so I hope my answer won't disappoint you too much, he said with fake nervousness while scratching the back of his head. Naidame created the Flying Thunder God technique, allowing the user to travel from point A to point B from a parallel dimension, with the aid of specific stamps. In short, what happens is the second. The user opens a portal to another dimension with the aid of a specific seal, is transported to another dimension, and can leave at another point in the space marked with the same seal almost instantly. Most of Naruto's classmates started to listen attentively to him, especially Satsuki and Shikamaru. This was new for the Uchiha as she was only known about a version of the technique, while Shikamaru had a bit of interest in the topic as he and Chuji made the same subject. However, the Flying Thunder God technique seems to have a very peculiar feature that makes all the difference when comparing the jutsu used by the two Hokages. The speed at which the user is sucked into another dimension is not instantaneous. Thus, one of the main enhancements created by Yandame was to improve the technique to the point of increasing the absorption speed by the parallel dimension, making his speed in the use of the Flying Thunder God technique more than that of Naidame. Besides, Yandame also managed to find a way to combine the Flying Thunder God technique with the Shadow Clone, being able to spread his clones across the battlefield and use them as markings to travel quickly from one place to another. That's exactly what he did in the Third Great Ninja War, when he was dealing with more than 1,000 ninjas of the Hidden Stone. Iruka nodded enthusiastically while Mizuki only smiled with favor upon him, though he, in fact, was fuming inside when the demon brat easily took a good answer for such a tough question. That's my whole answer. Is there anything else? Iruka-sensei? Mizuki-sensei? Yeah, the final question. Your team partner stated that the fourth wasn't born in Konoha. Then where did he come from? Iruka asked the question. It's unknown where Yandame was born, but according to my research, he had lived in a temple on rugged mountains, not too far from the capital of the Land of Fire before he moved to Konoha at the age of 8. Satsuki raised her eyebrow as she seemed confused. Did the fourth Hokage used to live in a temple? Where did he get that information? All right, good work, Naruto Satsuki. Irika stated while writing something in his notebook. You made a thorough study of the fourth Hokage as you made it clear about his life and history. There is also plenty of new knowledge that is outside material, so I commend you for doing that. However, there is still unproven information that may or may not be far from the truth, such as the fourth Hokage used to live in a temple. It may feed you a false detail, and you shouldn't have written it in your project. I see, Irika-sensei. Anyways, you two have done very well so far. After all, you chose a challenging topic because not too much information about the fourth Hokage is well known, and you had to work so hard to complete it. So I give you an A for your project. Yes, you're the best, sensei. Naruto exclaimed as he jumped into his teacher's arms and hugged him in joy. Wah! Be careful, Naruto. Irika struggled not to fall down on the ground before rubbing the head of his student. Several hours later, Satsuki sat in a tree overlooking a pond in the Uchiha clan district. She just came back from the academy a few minutes ago. Getting an A on her project was eligible for her and Naruto to get perfect scores for all written tests in the coming exam. It was a good thing for Satsuki as it would give her plenty of time to practice martial arts and ninja techniques instead of throwing herself into studying for meaningless exams in the academy. Though her project was far from her mind, all she could think of was Naruto. The project mostly gained from all his efforts while she simply put details together and wrote the presentation, not to mention other details that her team partner helped them to get the highest grade that only 4 groups were given. However, there was one thing she was still wondering about until now. Why did he make such a bitter expression? She thought while frowning a little, although it was a glimpse and it was nearly impossible to realize it. Satsuki had almost caught a look of sorrow and downcast flashing his eyes before it turned as usual back again after he had answered Irika's final question. Not only at that time, the Uchiha already saw such expressions from Naruto sometimes when they worked together on their project. When she asked about it, he only gave her a silly smile and said that it was nothing important. Satsuki, of course, knew that he was lying, but there were also no further questions. She wasn't going to make it difficult as it was his private problem and none of her business. But what was wrong with this frustration inside her? Uzumaki Naruto was her classmate and former team partner. They always had quarrels and fights with each other. Satsuki viewed Naruto as a hyperactive, brainless, obnoxious loser while the blonde stated that she was a spoiled princess who was full of pride and arrogance. I will get him for that later, Satsuki thought as she slightly twitched in irritation. In a word, their relationship could be described as rivals because they usually went head-to-head and competed individually against each other. However, Satsuki couldn't deny that Naruto was something outstanding and fantastic. She still remembered the day he was admitted to the class. At first, he was somewhat shy and pretty quiet, rarely talking to anyone. Gradually, he opened up and allowed a small number of people to get close to him, such as 2 other kids in her class, Nara and Akimichi. He started to cause more trouble by pranking teachers and other students, skipping class, etc. And those were the reasons why he was the dead last of the class. Around that time, Uchiha Satsuki used to be still an innocent, kind, pure little girl, though she still had a bit of a proud, superior streak at times. She had been curious about the new boy too much, but she also didn't try talking to him because it was simply that she didn't know what to say as most of the time other kids came up and talked to her. She was never in a sociable mood. For Uchiha Satsuki at that time, Uzumaki Naruto was just another kid in her class and she didn't care too much. And then that fateful day happened. The Uchiha clan was murdered in cold blood by her sister whom she had cherished and idolized too much, leaving her as the last Uchiha. The ultimate betrayal of Uchiha Izumi caused Satsuki to be wary of everybody around her. Was there anyone she could trust if even her beloved sister betrayed her in the most terrifying way? As a result, Satsuki decided to take the path of a lonely avenger, becoming more stronger for revenge for her parents and the Uchiha clan. She isolated herself from everybody around her, giving them the cold shoulder. She had become much colder and her kindness showed itself less and less. Thus, she quickly earned a reputation as an ice queen. At that time, she didn't think Naruto even existed in her eyes. Until that day. One day, when Satsuki was sitting on a dock staring off into the water, thinking about how she got the strength to kill Izumi, she caught sight of Naruto passing by there. At the time, she didn't care too much and ignored him, keeping on brooding about her killer sister. However, when she was about to turn around, Naruto suddenly stopped and turned to look at her. For a second there, Satsuki found herself not looking away from his sky-blue eyes. She stared at him and he only gazed at her back, before giving her a smile. And before Satsuki realized it, she slightly smiled back at him. Wow. Then the brooding Ice Queen is able to smile. I'm wondering if it's going to bucket down in a minute. It was at that very moment that he killed the thinly good mood in her, and Satsuki wanted nothing more than to strangle him with her bare hands. But once she was about to lash out at him, that stupid blondie was gone. Little did Satsuki know that Naruto, the time traveler, was seeking ways to reach out to her at that time, and he left because he thought he failed to get her attention, trying another approach later. Since then, the Uchiha girl started paying closer attention to the blonde boy. They never once talked to each other, but sometimes Satsuki still caught him looking over her and he would look away if she looked back. They just really interacted with each other as she picked on him when he was scolded by their homeroom teacher because of losing focus in class, and he mocked her then, and Satsuki felt her cheeks flush scarlet when it reminded her of the incident that had happened in class. And it's my first kiss, she thought with a rosy face while gently touching her lips with her finger before she swiftly shook her head. No, no, no. It's not like I feel something good or anything. Come to your senses now, Uchiha Satsuki. You have to get your revenge on that B***tch. You don't have time for this nonsense. She then looked up at the full moon in the sky. But it's not too bad. Yo, I hope that you have not been waiting long. Suddenly, the playful face of a certain lousy blonde idiot appeared from nowhere and blocked her view of the moon. His face was very close to her. Satsuki's face went red fiercely. Juh! She yelped and swung a quick blow at him, but Naruto dodged it easily. Man, I helped you to remove troublesome exams in the academy, and this is your way of repaying me. Kori no Jusama, he said with a fake hurt in his tone. I will snap your freaking neck if you do that again, you douchebag. You really fucking scared me to death, you know. The raven head hissed with a snarl while giving him a furious glare. Language, please. It's really something unfeminine for you. Satsuki stood up with some tick marks on her head, getting ready to pounce on him. Okay. Just kidding a little. I'm sorry. Still shooting a dagger at him before the Uchiha clicked her tongue and got back her position on the tree. What in the world is it that you want to meet me? And what is that? She asked as she pointed at the plastic bag that Naruto was holding. Something to celebrate our greatly successful project. Here, take it. Naruto answered as he threw a small box to her. It's still warm. Satsuki caught the box, staring at it for a while before she decided to open it, just to get a disgusting, awful smell filling her nostrils. Damn it! What the hell is this, you stupid dope? It smells so strongly of garlic. Just dumplings. And it's normal that there is a little garlic in dumplings, you know. Naruto merely replied while enjoying his food with satisfaction. I fucking hate garlic, you dope. No way I will eat this crap. Satsuki yelled as she was about to throw the box away, but Naruto stopped her in time. Oi, don't waste food. If you don't like it, you can give it back to me, the blonde said as he took the box out of her hand. But I think you only don't like sweet things. It turned out you also hate garlic. For God's sake, how the hell are you able to eat them? Still covering her nose and holding her breath, Satsuki grumbled with a scowled expression. I swear I've never smelled anything like that the whole disgusting in my life. Too bad you don't like it because garlic is good for health, Naruto stated, still eating his food. I think I'm getting sick of its smell, she replied sourly before a realization strongly hit her. Wait a minute, how do you know I don't like sweet things? Naruto just shrugged. Almost every day I usually hear it, from your fans and even your own lips when you refuse sweets that your fans give you, he answered. I don't like them because they're unhealthy and… Satsuki suddenly paused as she turned away. Nothing else. It's just that I don't want to risk my health. Naruto knew what Satsuki was about to tell but swallowed it instead. He decided to try his luck once again and see if she would open herself up to him. It's a bit risky, but try at least, he thought to himself. It might or might not have something to do with Uchiha Izumi. Mightn't it? Satsuki's eyes widened in horror as she turned around so swiftly that it nearly hurt her neck, staring at the blonde boy. "How?" she quietly mouthed. "Your fans are indeed annoying, but their detective skill can't be underestimated. They know pretty much about you." Naruto almost felt guilty when he was using the Uchiha's fans as a pretext to cover his source of information. Yeah, just almost, because they really drove him crazy sometimes. By the way, as a civilian of the Leaf who doesn't know about the infamous Uchiha massacre, I'm a little stupid, I admit, but it doesn't mean I don't know anything. "How much do you know?" Satsuki asked, her bangs covering her eyes. "All I know is that you're the youngest daughter of Uchiha Fugaku, the clan head, and his wife Uchiha Makoto, and Uchiha Izumi is your older sister. That B*TCH is no longer my sister." Satsuki interrupted him with a growl that was full of hatred and anger. "All right, calm down," Naruto replied with a slight sigh. "It's me in front of you, not Uchiha Izumi. So please don't look at me as if you're about to slash a kunai into my neck." "I'm sorry. I don't mean to get mad at you." The Uchiha apologized, looking down. "It's okay. It's really not easy for someone to be reminded of the day their family was brutally killed," Naruto said as he gave Satsuki a drink. "I can drop the topic now if you don't want me to tell about it anymore. When you're from the Uchiha clan, which means you have to try to become superior to the rest." She suddenly spoke out, interrupting him again. "It is expected of you, and doubly so for me since I was the clan head's daughter." She then took a sip of her drink. "It tastes good. A gift from the Hokage. Keep going," Naruto responded, feeling a sort of secret joy as the raven-haired girl finally opened with him. "My older sister, Izumi, was a prodigy of the highest caliber from the Uchiha clan. She set the bar so high at such a young age that it was virtually impossible to catch up. She was a genius, and my father saw her as the future leader of the clan. I was fine with that. All I wanted was to be her little sister and a capable ninja. But anywhere I went I was compared to her. However, it stopped because soon people realized we were different people. There was still a lingering doubt, which my father addressed by trying to arrange my marriage. If it wasn't for my mother and sister, I would have been a Hyuga or an Inuzuka by now." "An arranged marriage, eh? It's really something very unpleasant that you may have to be a companion to someone who you even don't know for your clan's sake." "Yeah, that's when I decided that I wanted to be strong and powerful so nobody could dictate my life. Not my father, sister, mother, and not even my own clan. Soon I started doing well. My dad saw that too. He was the one who taught me my first technique. Honestly, it was the happiest time of my life. I had everything. But then," she felt silence as the old wound started to resurface once again. "Uchiha Izumi went insane and slaughtered all people of the Uchiha clan except you," Naruto added, sipping his tea. "Or rather, it's rumored that." Satsuki took a deep breath and surprised herself by continuing. "It's not too far away from the truth. I met Izumi after she killed everybody. She said that the only reason she is keeping me alive is to test her strength. She did it to prove herself as the strongest. Not only that, she said that she wanted me to hate her and use that hate to get strong enough so I could give her a challenge. And then, before she left, she put me under a genjutsu that let me live through the sight of my family being murdered over and over and over again. She had tears streaming down her face by the end of that. Naruto only looked at her without saying anything, letting her shed tears and mourn all the deceased of the Uchiha clan while thinking about everything he knew about Sasuke's childhood life. Sasuke also lived in the shadow of his brother, Itachi, and his father never really admitted his abilities, no matter how hard he tried. And then, Itachi perpetrated the Uchiha massacre, fucked Sasuke's mind up so that he turned his hatred for his brother into strength and found him to avenge the Uchiha clan. Finally, Itachi died as a traitor who was executed by his brother, who then would be recognized as a hero, taking the truth of a true shinobi who took his village over his clan and took down his family, becoming a spy in a wolf den and protecting the village in the shadow to his grave. Seems like Uchiha Izumi had the same idea. Indeed, it was perfect plan fit for the talent of extraordinary prodigies. Sadly, they were clever enough to draw up such a plan, but they didn't see that they were just pawns of a scheming fucker with greater ambition. Have to do something with it or else it won't change anything, Naruto thought while rubbing his head. Man, Why is everything around Uchiha always so troublesome? And you just realized it. Knucklehead. From the mindscape, Kurama said sarcastically. Shut up, you damn furball. Naruto mentally grumbled before looking over at Satsuki, who recovered from her grief. Well, I can see why you seethe with hatred for your sister. Even if that was me, I didn't think I was able to keep a clear head. But there's one thing I don't understand. Satsuki raised her eyebrow. What is that? She asked in confusion. Your sister is about 5 years older than you, right? Satsuki nodded to him. Then, you don't find that odd at all? I mean, Uchiha Izumi was 13 at that time. All of your clan were killed, including elders who were well known as veterans and active experienced ninjas, and even your father who was the clan head. Although Izumi was an ANBU and owned Manjikyu Sharingan, I doubt a 13-year-old girl was able to take down all of them on her own in only one night. The Uchiha froze in shock as that deduction hit her strongly. She didn't even think of that. That is not all. Izumi told you that she massacred the clan because she wanted to test her strength. Then, why didn't she find other clan heads or ANBUs or even the Hokage instead of killing harmless women and children? What are you trying to tell me, Naruto? It was a rare time she called him by his first name, but none of them noticed it. Have you considered the possibility that there is another reason why your sister committed the Uchiha massacre? Satsuki sucked back a breath as she was stunned by the realization. A slew of questions rushed into her mind uncontrolled. Was that possible? Was there another reason for the downfall of her clan? Then what could that be? What could make Izumi slaughter her clan in cold blood? And more important, why did she keep Satsuki alive while she killed all of the others? All right, I have to go because I have something to do. She was snapped out of her thoughts and turned around, spotting that the blonde boy was about to leave, but not before looking over at her. What I just told you is just my speculations without conclusive evidence, so don't worry about it too much. However, think carefully about your vengeance on Uchiha Izumi because she's still your sibling after all. Don't let your rage control you, and do something that will make you regret it later. I strongly advise. With that, Naruto leaped from the tree, leaving Satsuki alone still thinking about his words. Do something that will make me regret it? No way I will regret killing that psycho bitch. Right? She quietly mumbled while looking up at the sky, with the cool breeze blowing through her silky raven hair. Naruto was on the way back to his apartment while having a discussion with Kurama via their link. Are you sure you should do that, Kit? Trying to get her to question everything. It's the most workable way. You know I can't simply spit everything out without raising her suspicion. Not to mention there is insufficient evidence for it. Well, at least it seems to have helped some because the brat seems to begin to think things over I can see. Kurama commented. Satsuki can loathe her sister with every fiber, but a part deep inside herself still held on to a shred of hope that she's not such a cold-blooded killer. Naruto replied, his voice containing a trace of anxiety. And I'm getting that hope up. Are you worried that things won't go your way? Naruto breathed out a heavy sigh. This is another timeline, or rather, another dimension. Not everything is the same as our timeline. His expression became gloomy in an instant. Such as those. Those again. The fox groaned in irritation, feeling another big headache for him. Doesn't the old Hokage give you everything you need? And you've plenty of time for studying them. I just hope nothing bad comes to me before I fully understand all of them. Arg. What a drag. Having a basic understanding of those fantastic new notions is the best thing you're able to do now, Kit. Anyway, are you sure about that? Naruto got confusion on his face. The role you're going to take. Don't you think an ANBU is better than that? I'm inappropriate as an ANBU because I'm unable to meet rigorous requirements for it, you know. I'd better get that role because not many high demands for it and I can use it as my cover for my personal jobs. You're skating on thin ice by doing that, you know? Well, it's not my first time, dude. Naruto replied with his famous foxy smile. You can't get anywhere in life without taking risks, Kurama snorted. I shouldn't have asked you that because I soon guessed the answer. He grunted in a grumpy tone. Oh, come on. Just admit you care for me. That's very obvious. I will die if you die, so why don't I care for it? Kurama stated while smirking smugly. Touché. Naruto grumbled sulkily. In a town near the border of the Land of Fire, Uchiha Izumi had many things to regret in her life. Being born in one of the noble clans of one of the 5 strongest ninja villages and regarded as a special enigma in her generation, Izumi almost had everything the others wished for. At the age of 6, she enrolled in the academy, where she consistently scored the highest in each subject and quickly learned any skill taught to her, resulting in her being praised and widely idolized by everybody. Even her teachers agreed to let her take the graduation exam early 4 months later due to Izumi being more than advanced enough for Genin level, which she passed later that month. Becoming a Genin and joining a team, Izumi went on to hone her skills to Chunin level, leading to her drawing the attention of Konoha's high-ups. After turning 8, Izumi awoke her Sharingan when she witnessed the death of her teammate. Her first regret: she couldn't do anything to save a comrade. Izumi's potential and abilities, plus awakening Sharingan at a young age, made her a source of great pride for her family. Her father viewed Izumi as proof of Uchiha's future prosperity and focused on developing her talents much more. She even was allowed by Fugaku to sit on clan meetings. However, that were also the moments Izumi slowly recognized the dark side of the Uchiha clan. Being one of the 2 strongest clans from the Warring States period, the Uchiha clan had never ceased pursuing ambition for dominant conquest. Despite having a share in founding the Hidden Leaf Village along with the Senju clan, it was not still enough to quench their superiority of mind. Elders of the clan wanted more than that. They had an extraordinary appetite for power, an absolute power for the Uchiha clan. The Uchiha clan must always be at the top of the world. Uchihas never submit to anyone or anything. Uchiha elders always did everything to influence many Uchiha generations with such ideals. The unstoppable lust for power and the ideal of absolute superiority, plus the eternal conflict between the Uchiha clan and the Hidden Leaf Village, were all factors contributing to an extremist decision from the Uchiha clan's high-ups, carrying out a coup d'etat and overthrowing the 3rd Hokage's government. Around that time, Izumi joined the Umbu as its youngest member and was assigned to Team Ro, working alongside Tenzo and with Inu, whom she then knew was Hatake Kakashi, as her captain. With the power of Sharingan, Uchiha elders were confident that they were able to control the 9-tailed beast, surprisingly attack the village, and easily achieve final victory. At least elders of the clan thought that way. But they didn't know how much they were naive and short-sighted. If the leaf could be torn down easily in the way they already supposed, it would have never been viewed as the strongest ninja village for a long period of time. They were so fiercely proud of their bloodline and power that they barely remembered the Hyuga clan with the Byakugan and other loyal clans in the village. Even if the Uchiha clan's coup was successful, no way they would stand idly by, and the outbreak of a civil war was wholly unavoidable. Other nations, of course, would hop on the opportunity to crush Konoha while they were weak. Konoha would be thrown into chaos, and then maybe the outbreak of the 4th Great Shinobi War. As loyal ninjas of the Hidden Leaf Village, Izumi and her cousin, Uchiha Shursui, couldn't allow that to happen. They informed the Hokage and his administration about the coup and got controversial opinions. Sandaime wanted to solve the conflict by using peaceful means, while the elder, Shimura Danzo, expressed his opinion to execute all people of the Uchiha clan, which was immediately dismissed by the Hokage. They decided to try Shursue's plan, followed by casting a powerful yet subtle mind-controlling genjutsu called Koto Amatsu on Uchiha Fugaku and changing his mind so that the coup d'etat wouldn't take place. However, Danzo wasn't convinced that manipulating Fugaku wouldn't bring an end to the revolution. He also doubted that Shursui would use the Koto Amatsukami against him and try to manipulate him as well. So as Shursui prepared to make his move against Fugaku, Danzo cornered Shursui and took his right eye, before Shursui managed to get away and reach Izumi. In the end, entrusted his other eye to Izumi and then committed suicide in front of her, leading to the awakening of her Manjikyu Sharingan. Her second regret: she was too helpless to save a loved one. In the days that followed, Izumi still reprised her role as a double agent, reporting the Uchiha's actions to the 3rd Hokage and the Konoha Council. Slowly, a rift was created between Izumi and her family, as she was rarely at home, usually having arguments with her father and spending less and less time with her mother and Satsuki. Her third regret: that she already neglected and then isolated herself from her little sister. Finally, When her warnings to her father and the Uchiha clan to reconsider what they were doing fell on deaf ears, Izumi had to face with the hardest choice of her life. After reporting the clan's imminent revolt to Konoha Council, Danzo went behind the Hokage's back, recognizing that there was no longer an outcome that could see the Uchiha clan's survival and leaving Izumi a choice: supporting the Uchiha's coup and having the whole clan, including Satsuki, killed in the ensuing conflict, or accepting the assignment to wipe out the clan before the coup started and be allowed to spare her younger sister. Izumi could put the village over her clan, but Satsuki was and would be always her top priority. So, she chose to commit the massacre and keep Satsuki alive. Her fourth regret: she made her own choice to kill her kin, including her parents, for the peace of the Hidden Leaf and the shinobi world. However, Izumi's biggest regret was abandoning Satsuki in the village because she was currently a rogue ninja and a spy in a terrorist organization including S-rank rogue ninjas who were pursued across the elemental nations Akatsuki. Not to mention, she even tormented her sister with visions of murders by using Tsukuyomi and divulged the lie that she killed all the clan to test her strength. In fact, Izumi wanted to inspire Satsuki to become strong enough to kill her and take revenge for the Uchiha clan, becoming the hero of Konoha while Izumi would die with secrets that would be never revealed. However, it meant that Izumi failed to keep her promise to her parents that she would take care of Satsuki very well. Welcome to Kanahimit Inn. How can I help you? Izumi was snapped out of her thoughts as she slightly lifted her head, casting a glance at the entrance. There it was one of the servants of the inn greeting a newcomer who was a little peculiar. How did she put this? That person looked like a snowman? Or a large, costume doll? Was that really a human? It was hard to say because their face was covered with white silk, but it still revealed the acorn eyes and bushy eyebrows that peered out from it were adorable. She would temporarily state him as the ninja doll. The ninja doll didn't say anything to reply. Instead, he started to discreetly do gestures and movements that looked like a kind of sign language that Izumi was unable to realize, but the servant did as she widened her eyes, staring at the ninja doll for a while before bowing her head. "Yes, sir. Follow me, please," she said politely with a business smile as the ninja doll nodded, following after her. They passed another servant who was going to the table where Izumi was sitting. That servant put a dango plate on the table. "Your dated friend came. Have a good day," he said with a friendly smile and left then. A few minutes later, Izumi quickly finished her plate and stood up, putting some coins on the table before going upstairs. Standing in front of the wooden door, Izumi stared at it for seconds before knocking on it gently. "A feather fell silently at dawn," she said stoically. The door opened slowly, revealing the head of the ninja doll. He bowed a little. Izumi slightly nodded her head before entering the room. The man looked around for seconds, checking if someone was there before quickly closing the door, locking it, and carefully putting a piece of paper with odd kanji on the door. The rogue Uchiha raised her eyebrow. That was a type of fuinjutsu she already knew, but she was a bit confused about why that man didn't use a silent barrier instead, as fuinjutsu was very complicated and hard to cast. As if reading her thoughts, the ninja doll took out a sketchbook and wrote something before showing it to her. Silent barrier is pretty handy, but it still releases trace amounts of chakra that can be sensed by experienced sensors and create doubts. I don't know if any of Akatsuki have the ability of a sensor, but better safe than sorry. Izumi looked at the ninja doll blankly. "Can't you speak?" The ninja doll turned to the next page of the sketchbook. "Yes. And no." She blinked at those words. What did he mean? The humanoid figure once again turned to the next page of the sketchbook. "It's a pleasure doing business with you." He continued with the next page. "Any updates about the Red Dawn? Who are you?" Izumi asked emotionlessly while keeping a careful eye on the man. "I think you were informed about me. I'm your new contact, Karasu-san." When she knew that Jiraiya would stop being her contact because of his spying mission and someone would take his place, Izumi requested the Hokage to keep her identity secret, and she was only stated as Karasu, her old codename in ANBU. "Your name, is this necessary?" "Yes, I have to make sure the one who is in front of me is an ally, not a foe," she stated as she released a little killing intent. "And I will have my own ways to you if you're." The ninja doll just sat idly in his seat. It looked like he was staring at her before he wrote something into his sketchbook and showed it then. Little Musashibo? Her reply was a nod from him. That's not your true name, is that? It's forbidden for people like us to allow someone to know our true name, especially contacts like me. We're not afraid of death, but that doesn't mean we are ready to risk our life carelessly, was what was written on the page of the sketchbook. Izumi said nothing, only looking at him suspiciously. The ninja doll continued to write something in his sketchbook and showed it. Looks like you still doubt me, but I can't blame you for that because it's our first meeting. However, if I show you my special symbol, I believe it might or might not cease your suspicion of me. The ninja doll then put the notebook down on the table, slowly pulling his right sleeve up and revealing something beneath it. Izumi widened her eyes in horror at the thing on his bicep. A red-blue armband. Sugu, she mouthed in disbelief. Then you know about us after all. I even thought I would have to take some more time to explain it in a way that would get through to you. It's a relief. Reading those carefree words, Izumi couldn't help but get a closer look at him. I don't know about you or your comrades too much, but don't you know the meaning of that thing? She asked hoarsely. The ninja doll seemed to smile at her as he turned to the next page of the sketchbook. I fully know it. Another very carefree answer. Are you serious? I know you're curious about my symbol, but can we focus on the issue at hand? I don't think you have too much time to interview me now because there will be a lot of things to talk about and I would like to save them for another time when we don't have to worry about our missions. Izumi twitched with a hint of annoyance. This was clearly a disguised evasion of answering so that this ball-like weirdo wouldn't have to reveal anything more to her. She didn't know much about Sugu, except for what she had heard from rumors and stories her mother had told her when she was young. Forget it, let's focus on our task first. Izumi mentally grumbled unhappily as she nodded and started her report. There are 2 new members to join the Red Dawn. They're extremely dangerous S-rank ninjas, she stated as she gave little Musashibo a scroll. This is everything I investigated about them, including their status and power. One from the hidden stone and the other from the hidden waterfall. Deidara and Kakuzu? Little Musashibo showed the sketchbook with words. How do you know? Izumi was a little surprised, but she immediately covered it with her stoic expression. It's one of the abilities that red armband bearers like me should be able to do, to collect as valuable information as we can. How much do you know? Izumi asked in a demanding tone. Little Musashibo only shrugged and calmly turned to the next page. Not too much. I only know Akatsuki currently has 11 members, including the unknown leader, an unknown member, Sasori of the Hidden Sand, Hashigaki Kisame and Biwa Juzo of the Hidden Mist, Kabakia of the Hidden Grass, Deidara of the Hidden Stone, Kakuzu of the Hidden Waterfall, Zetsu, Orochimaru and Uchiha Izumi of the Hidden Leaf. Please correct me if there is something wrong. Izumi was stunned, staring at her new contact in front of her in shock. How the hell could he know about those things? No one was ever able to know the identity of Akatsuki's members mostly. Even Jiraiya, the Toad Sannin, who was well known for his ability to gather information, also didn't know anything about his old teammate joining Akatsuki. However, little Musashibo didn't mention anything about the orange-masked man. It seemed he had not yet learned of his existence. By the way, it appeared that he also didn't know Orochimaru left Akatsuki a while ago. But still, it didn't take away from the fact that his knowledge of Akatsuki was barely beyond her imagination. He even got an awareness of the Akatsuki leader and Zetsu, and maybe the girl with blue hair as he just stated about an unknown member. The Uchiha spy looked up as little Musashibo turned the page, and she once again twitched in frustration. I know I'm very adorable, but it's pretty rude that you stared at me as if I'm some kind of alien, you know? She could feel a smug smirk behind the cloth covering his face and wanted nothing but to knock him out. But Izumi decided to hold it back because she still needed this idiot to send her reports to the Hokage later. Then, is something wrong, Karasu-san? Izumi shook her head as an affirmation before looking him in the eye. Most of them are right, I admit, but where did you get all of those things? She asked in an interrogated tone, narrowing her eyes. I have my own ways to extract information. As for my sources, sorry, but I also have an unchangeable rule that I will never reveal who gave me or where I got the information for security reasons. The rogue Kunoichi easily felt a strong commitment from each word in his reply, showing that he wouldn't breathe a word of his informants. In fact, she could cast Tsukuyumi on him and force him to answer all her questions without worrying about his resistance. Still, it was not something she wanted to do to a fellow Konoha ninja. In addition, she also felt considerable respect for this man as he refused to tell her about his sources because he wanted to protect them. "I see," she said softly, slightly bowing her head. "Sorry, I'm just curious. It's fine. We humans are innately curious creatures, and it's not the first time someone wanted to learn about my way of doing." The raven-head girl really wanted to laugh at that, but she kept it. Humans were innately curious creatures. Damn right he was. Curiosity could be considered as the never-ending thirst of the human race that even after reaching the zenith never allows them to be satisfied. However, sometimes that curiosity might or might not do more harm than good. I think we should end it here because I still have something to do. With that, little Musashibo took Izumi's scrolls and stood up. "I will deliver your report to Hokage-sama when I come back, Konoha." He stuffed it into his backpack and then took out a heavy, thick envelope before giving it to Izumi. "Here is a small gift for you, Karasa-san." Taking the envelope from the man, Izumi looked pretty confused and wondered what was inside. "Thanks for your hard work. Feel free to contact me if you get anything else, though it might or might not be unnecessary." Izumi looked at him blankly as little Musashibo continued to turn the next page. "And beware of that orange-masked freak." Izumi widened her eyes in astonishment. He knew about the masked man? "How? I'm going now. See ya." "Wait," Izumi called out, but it was too late. Little Musashibo disappeared in clouds of smoke. As if he soon guessed Izumi's reaction and got out of there as fast as he could. The Uchiha quickly rushed to the window and opened it, carefully scanning around with her matured Sharingan. But there were no signs of little Musashibo or even his chakra anywhere near the inn. The Uchiha froze in shock. How the hell could he flee in a heartbeat? Izumi then looked at the thick envelope in her hand with a little hesitation before she decided to remove the seal, just to see dozens of photographs and a piece of paper inside. Even more remarkable, though, these were photographs of her loving sister. Fucking all of them. Every picture was a snapshot of the daily life of Uchiha Satsuki in Konoha, from the Uchiha district to the academy. As if she was reading a photo diary about her little sister. Izumi contended with a range of emotions that she had never before experienced when she looked at those photos. Her finger gently touching the image of her sister as tears slowly fell down her face. She really missed Satsuki so much and never once stopped worrying about her well-being, constantly wondering if she was fine or in good hands. All Izumi could do was secretly come back to the village and observe Satsuki from a distance sometimes. Of course, she couldn't do that freely and usually, because it would look suspicious if someone in Akatsuki found out, especially the masked bastard. Therefore, it was difficult for her to keep up with what was happening with her sister. But how did that guy have those photos? Why did he give them to her? She then remembered the piece of paper that was included, and she unwrapped it. As predicted, it was a letter, little Musashibo's letter to her. "Hey, Karasa-san, I'm sure you're very surprised after seeing what is in the envelope. Well, as I said, a small gift for you. You're wondering why I give them to you. The reason is simple. Because it's something I guess you will want more than anything. Man, it's a noble gesture for everything you have been doing for our village, and this is only the first Thanksgiving from a citizen to a true ninja who sacrifices everything in her life and protects the village in the shadow. Until our next appointment, take care of yourself. Your contact, little Musashibo." A brief letter, but it was enough to leave Izumi stunned in her spot, staring at the passage in dismay. What did these words mean? And these photos? Did he already know that she was Uchiha Izumi? How was it even possible? What else did that guy know? Did he even know about her missions? This is the capacity of a red armband agent? She whispered, staring at the letter and her sister's pictures. Izumi recalled what her mother had told her about the red-blue armband wearers, about Sugu or Tsubamagumi, because her former teammate had once been an agent of Sugu, and rumors had spread like wildfire throughout the village. They were a secret force. No, calling them secret was an understatement. They were classified at the highest possible level, secrets wrapped in secrets. They were a unit that specialized exclusively in intelligence gathering, espionage, reconnaissance, and secret communications. Their primary role involved maintaining a secure information network between the Hokage and undercover spies. Sugu operatives possessed exceptional skills in disguise, stealth, and adaptability. Although they didn't emphasize direct combat prowess, each member excelled in escaping dangerous situations to protect valuable intelligence. No one knows their true names, genders, or appearances. Every Tsugu ninja operates under entirely fabricated identities, with the only recognizable feature being a distinctive armband, half red and half blue, always hidden carefully beneath their sleeves. Despite being entirely real and officially operating parallel to the ANBU, Sugu's secrecy was so profound that their existence has turned into something of an urban legend within Konoha. Izumi herself had thought Sugu to be just another amusing village myth. That changed dramatically when she joined ANBU and heard first-hand accounts from colleagues who had actually partnered with Tsugu ninjas, revealing to her, beyond all doubt, that the legendary force was not only real but still operating quietly in the shadows. However, everything she knew about Sugu was limited to mere words passed around among fellow ANBU members. She had never met one personally, nor had she witnessed their existence firsthand. Until today. Therefore, Izumi was sure of one thing. Her new contact, a Tsugu agent, was a master of stealth, concealment, and quick escapes. And it also means that if I try to look into him, I'll finally end up with an empty sack. Suddenly, the piece of paper caught fire and burned to ashes in her hand, but the Uchiha girl realized it. The piece of paper itself was a sealing technique that was used for information security. It would be pyrophoric after a certain length of time, as expected of someone who is a master of stealth, with the ability to blend seamlessly into the shadows. Izumi thought, expressing her admiration for little Musashibo. However, that didn't mean that Izumi would let that weirdo get away with taking pictures of her little sister. Seriously? He even took more than a dozen pictures. Does that idiot even understand what personal boundaries are? How dare he invade Satsuki's privacy like this? And, for heaven's sake, how did he manage to infiltrate our compound without anyone noticing? Izumi's sisterly protective instincts surged like a tidal wave, boiling her blood in a furious blaze. She could already imagine dozens of wonderfully gruesome punishments awaiting that arrogant Sugu agent the next time they met. Perhaps she'd break each finger slowly, one by one, until he revealed every method he used to sneak into her home. Or maybe she'd hang him upside down by his ankles, gently dangling him over an acid bath while leisurely reading his ridiculously annoying notebook aloud. Oh, better yet, she could tie him up, strip off that ridiculous disguise, and introduce him to a few specialized genjutsu she'd learned specifically for interrogation, plunging his mind into endless loops of humiliation and pain until he begged forgiveness for daring to stalk Satsuki. An evil smirk appeared briefly on Izumi's usually stoic face. Yes, she'd have plenty of delightful options to choose from, and he would deeply regret ever crossing the Uchiha. Suppressing her boiling anger and quietly vowing to carry out those morbidly satisfying punishments later, the elder Uchiha quickly composed herself. She needed to leave now before her Akatsuki partners became suspicious. The report had been safely delivered, and her mission here was done. For now. Meanwhile, on an oak tree nearby, little Musashibo sat perched silently on the sturdy branch of a tall tree nearby, his presence expertly concealed through layers of careful chakra suppression. He finally allowed himself a deep, relieved exhale as the tension gradually left his body. Man, that was way too close, he muttered with a hint of fear. For a moment there, I thought Izumi-san was actually going to kill me. Heh, you play stupid games, brat, and you win stupid prizes. Honestly, Naruto, of all the disguises you could have chosen, you went with a mascot. A deep, amused growl echoed within his mind, rich with mocking laughter. Naruto scowled beneath the heavy, plush headpiece, irritation bubbling up. Shut it, Kurama. It worked, didn't it? Nobody would suspect an innocent-looking mascot walking around. Anyone smarter than a rock would. The Nine-Tails scoffed dismissively. Naruto grumbled under his breath before pulling off the oversized mascot head, revealing his youthful face with bright blue eyes framed by messy, spiky blonde hair. He shook out his hair with relief, enjoying the cool night air on his flushed skin. Much better, Naruto whispered contentedly, shaking his messy hair loose. At least I won't suffocate anymore. Kurama snorted again, though this time with less mockery. Still reckless as ever. You seriously risked your life just to hand that Uchiha woman a few pictures. Naruto's expression softened, turning contemplative as he gazed into the distant lights flickering from the village. It's not just pictures, Kurama. Izumi-san is carrying around a heavy burden. If these little things can help her endure just a bit longer, then it's worth it. Humph. Always playing the hero, Kurama said, though there was begrudging respect in his tone. But tell me something, Naruto. Why go through all the trouble to become a liaison between that female version Itachi and the Hokage? You know the risks, because it's the first step. Naruto's lips curved into a gentle, determined smile. Izumi-san has been suffering alone, carrying a secret she can't share, even with her own sister. Satsuki hates her right now, believing her sister is the monster responsible for everything. Izumi-san chose this painful path to protect Satsuki and the village, but the truth has to come out someday, for the sake of the future. And you think you can fix this mess? Kurama's voice was thoughtful, even curious. I have to try, Kurama. If I can help Izumi-san find her way home one day, if I can help Satsuki accept the truth and finally understand her sister, then everything we're doing now, every risk we're taking, is worth it. Kurama fell silent, but Naruto felt the fox's quiet agreement and understanding through their bond. Just try not to get yourself killed, brat. I'd hate to experience dying again. The spiky blonde chuckled softly, shaking his head fondly. Don't worry, I'm too stubborn to die easily. Several hours later, the Hokage Tower. Hiruzen Sarutobi was sitting at his desk, surrounded by piles of paperwork, looking exhausted and utterly bored. He wished he could just set fire to the stack of papers in front of him and make it disappear once and for all. Just then, there was a scratching sound at the window behind Hiruzen. Turning to look, he realized it was a small squirrel, and on its back, it was carrying something. The third Hokage opened the window, and the squirrel jumped in, landing on his desk. He gently removed the item from the squirrel's back, revealing it to be a scroll, more precisely a message scroll. Unsealing the scroll's seal, Hiruzen quickly unfurled it and began to read. The more he read, the more his expression hardened with utmost seriousness. So, Akatsuki has gained more new members, huh? Even Orochimaru is also a member. He mumbled while continuing to read. Kakuzu? Isn't the name of the assassin from Taki who aimed at Shodame-sama before? Is he still alive? The threat of Akatsuki, a terrorist organization made up entirely of S-rank ninja, has always been a top concern, not just in Konoha but also in other ninja villages. Anyways, their targets were individuals whom the ninja villages all protected at all costs. The Jinchuriki. Hiruzen snapped his fingers, and an ANBU officer instantly appeared from nowhere, kneeling before him. Taking 2 clan heads of the Nara and Yamanaka clans here immediately, he commanded. Yes, Hokage-sama. The ANBU with a tiger mask disappeared. Both clan heads arrived at the Hokage's office a few minutes later. They opened the door, entered, and bowed to the village leader. Hokage-sama, Shikaku, Inoichi, I've been waiting for both of you, Hiruzen said, handing them a scroll. Read this. Shikaku took the scroll from the Hokage, opened it, and began reading alongside Inoichi. Both couldn't hide their surprise as they went through each line of the report, but quickly regained the composure characteristic of seasoned shinobi. Then they've gained new members. It won't be long before they start moving more aggressively, Inoichi concluded. According to the reconnaissance team, 2 Jinchuriki from Iwagakure and Kirigakura have disappeared without a trace, and their whereabouts remain unknown. Although it isn't confirmed 100%, there is a possibility that the Akatsuki took them. That's what you're suggesting, right, Shikaku? Hiruzen continued with a somber tone. Shikaku nodded gravely. We can't rule out the possibility that they've already. Yes. The third Hokage's expression grew stern. And it's likely that Kiri has more than one person missing. What do you mean? Inoichi raised an eyebrow in confusion. The fourth Mizukage is also a Jinchuriki. I see. The fourth Mizukage has hardly appeared at all recently, Even within the Mist Village, Shikaku said, feeling a growing sense of unease. There have also been reports of rumored uprisings against the Mizukage within the Mist Village. Inoichi nodded grimly. I'm not surprised. With the fourth Mizukage's harsh and brutal policies that have earned the village its reputation as the bloody hidden Mist Village, conflict was bound to erupt sooner or later. He slowly set down the scroll, his thoughtful eyes turning toward the Hokage. Clearing his throat slightly, he shifted the conversation to a different but equally delicate topic. Hokage-sama, the clan head of Yamanaka clan, began carefully. There's one more matter I've been meaning to discuss. It concerns Naruto. Hiruzen nodded slowly, understanding immediately what Inoichi was about to bring up. He had expected this topic would surface sooner or later. I assume you're worried about him joining Sugu? The Hokage asked gently, meeting the Yamanaka clan head's concerned gaze. Yes, Inoichi admitted openly. I understand his abilities are exceptional. After all, he's shown knowledge and skills far beyond those of ordinary shinobi his age. He paused briefly, weighing his next words carefully. Even considering the circumstances behind Naruto's unique situation, I can't shake off the feeling that assigning him tasks associated with Sugu is too much. He's just a kid, Hokage-sama. Despite everything, Shikaku sighed heavily, folding his arms across his chest. I understand your concerns, Inoichi. Honestly, I share them. Naruto might possess skills and knowledge from a future we can't even imagine, but emotionally and physically, he's still very young. Assigning him missions with so much secrecy and danger makes me uneasy, too. Hiruzen's expression softened as he contemplated both men's genuine worries. Naruto was undeniably gifted. His knowledge from the future made him an invaluable asset, but he was also Minato's son, a child they had all sworn to protect. Inoichi glanced at Shikaku, seeking support. And let's not forget about his appearance, he continued, his tone growing more serious. Naruto now looks exactly like a younger version of Minato. The more he's exposed, the higher the risk someone dangerous might make that connection. Shikaku rubbed his temples slowly, his voice thoughtful yet firm. You're not wrong. Naruto's resemblance to the fourth Hokage is uncanny, and it is a significant risk factor. However, we should also acknowledge that Naruto himself strongly insisted on joining Sugu. He did, Hiruzen confirmed softly. Naruto himself approached me directly. He volunteered for this role specifically because he wants to ensure Uchiha Izumi has a trustworthy contact. Naruto's ability to assess situations, plan ahead, and execute delicate missions is not something we can simply overlook. And his performance during the capability evaluation showed that he's more than qualified to handle this position. Shikaku nodded quietly in agreement. Naruto fully understands the risks involved, perhaps even more than we do. He convinced me personally that he was capable of this responsibility. He's determined to do this for Konoha, and also for Izumi and Satsuki. I suppose you're both right. Inoichi sighed, still visibly conflicted but gradually accepting their reasoning. Naruto is not a typical child after all. His determination is remarkable, just like Minato's was. He paused, his expression softening with nostalgia. Minato always had a way of making everyone trust him, even when we worried about his recklessness. Hiruzen smiled faintly, a glimmer of pride visible in his wise eyes. Exactly. Naruto carries that same spirit. He chose this path himself and I trust him fully. Even weakened by the time travel, his insight and skill remain exceptional. The Hokage slowly rose from his seat, stepping closer to the window overlooking Konoha. His voice became quieter yet resolute, his gaze firm. I've decided to put my trust in Naruto, not only because he's Minato's son, but because he's proven himself repeatedly. If he believes this path can help mend the Uchiha sisters' bond and perhaps even strengthen Konoha's future, then we must support him. Inoichi and Shikaku exchanged quiet glances, the unease gradually fading from their faces as they silently agreed. Naruto had never failed them before. There was no reason to believe he would start now. I suppose we'll just have to trust him, Inoichi finally concluded, a gentle smile forming as his doubts eased. Though I do hope he'll at least pick a less conspicuous disguise next time. A mascot, really? Knowing Naruto, he'll find something even more absurd next. Shikaku chuckled dryly, shaking his head. Don't forget that he's also Kushina's son. Indeed. Hiruzen allowed himself a small chuckle, feeling lighter for the first time in hours. And somehow, he'll make it work. The three shinobi shared a brief but comforting moment of laughter, letting the tension ease. Deep down, each man silently vowed to keep a careful watch over Naruto, because of his vital importance to Konoha, but because the stubborn, determined blonde boy had become someone precious they all wished to protect.